The Real Diary of a Real Boy. By Henry A. Shute. Introduction. In the winter of 1901 to 2002, while rummaging an old closet in the shed chamber of my father's house, I unearthed a salt box which had been equipped with leather hinges at the expense of considerable ingenuity, and at a very remote period. In addition to this, a hasp of the same material, firmly fastened by carpet tacks and a catch of bent wire, bade defiance to burglars, midnight marauders, and safe breakers. Diary. Father thought I ought to keep a diary, but I said I didn't want to, because I couldn't write well enough, but he said he would give $1,000 if he had kept a diary when he was a boy. Mother said she just nobody would dast to read it, but father said everybody would tumble over each other to read it, anyhow he would give $1,000 if he had kept it. I told him I would keep one regular if he would give me $0.25 a week, but he said I had got to keep it anyhow and I wouldn't get no quarter for it neither, but he wouldn't ask to read it for a year, and I know he will forget it before that, so I am going to write just what I want to in it. Father always forgets everything but my lickins. He remembers them every time, you bet. So I have got to keep it, but it seems to me that my diary is worth $0.25 a week if father's is worth $1,000. Everybody says father was a buster when he was a boy and went round with Jim Melcher and Charles Taylor. My grandmother says I am the best boy she ever see. If I didn't go with Beanie Watson and Pewter Parrington, it was Beanie and Pewt made me tough. There doesn't seem to be much to put into a diary, only fights and who got licked at school and if it rains or snows, so I will begin today. December 1st, 186 bright and fair, late to breakfast, but mother didn't say nothing. Father goes to Boston and works in the custom house so I can get up as late as I want to. Father says he works like time, but I went to Boston once and father didn't do anything but tell stories about what he and Jim Melcher used to do when he was a boy. Once or twice when a man came in they would all be writing fast. When the man came in again I said, why do you all write so fast when he comes in and stop when he goes out? And the man sort of laughed and went out laughing, and the men were mad and told father not to bring that damn little fool again. December 2nd. Skinny Bruce got licked in school today. I told my grandmother about it, and she said she was glad I didn't do anything to get punished for, and she felt sure I never would. I didn't tell her I had to stay in the woodbox all the morning with the cover down. I didn't tell father either, you bet. December 2nd. Rainy. I forgot to say it rained yesterday too. I got cold and have a red rag round my gozzle. December 2nd. Pretty near had a fight in Shoal today. Skinny Bruce and Frank Elliott got right up with their fists up when the bell rung. It was too bad, it would have been a bully fight. I bet on Skinny. December 3rd, 186 bright and fair. Went to church today. Me and Pewt and Beanie go to the Unitarian church. We all joined Sunday school to get into the Christmas festival. They have it in the town hall and have 2 trees and supper and presents for the scholars. So we are going to stay till after Christmas anyway. The Unitarians have just built a new church. Pewt and Beanie's fathers painted it, and so they go there. I don't know why we go there except because they don't have any church in the afternoon. Nipper Brown and Mickey Gould go there. We all went into the same class. Our teacher is Mr. Windsor, a student. We call them studcats. After we had said our lesson we all skinned out with Mr. Windsor. When we went down Maple Street we saw 2 roosters fighting in Danny Wingate's yard, and we stopped to see it. I knew more about fighting roosters than any of the fellers, because me and Ed Tall had fit roosters lots. Mr. Windsor said I was a sport. Well, while the roosters were fighting, Sunday school let out and he skipped across the street and walked off with one of the girls and we hollered for him to come and see the fight out, and he turned red and looked mad. The leghorn squirked and stuck his head into a corner. When a rooster squirks he won't fight any more. December 5th. Snowed today and school let out at noon. This afternoon went down to the library to plug studcats. There was me and Beanie and Pewt, and Whacker and Posy Chadwick and Priscilla Hobbs. Priscilla is a feller you know, and Phoebe Taylor, Phoebe is a feller too, and Lubin Smith and Nigger Bell, he isn't a nigger only we call him Nigger, and Tommy Thompson and Dutchy Siemens and Chick Chickering, and Tatey Finkton and Chitter Robinson. December 6th. Jim Wingate has got a new bobtail coat. December 7th. 186 got sent to bed last night for smoking hayseed cigars and can't go with Beanie anymore. It is funny, my father won't let me go with Beanie because he is tough, and Pute's father won't let Pute go with me because I'm tough, and Beanie's father says if he catches me or Pute in his yard he will lick time out of us. Rainy today. December 8th. Skinny Bruce got licked in school today. Skippy Moses was in the woodbox all the morning. December 9th. Bright and fair, speaking day today. Mist and Horatius at the bridge. December 10th. Cloudy but no rain. Went to church. Lots of new fellers in Sunday school. Me and Beanie and Pute and Pyle Woods and Billy Folsom and Jimmy Gadd and lots of others. Mr. Windsor didn't teach today, just they wouldn't let him on account of the rooster fight. December 11th. My new boots from Tommy Gadd's came today. I tell you they are clumpers. No snow yet. December 12th. Christmas is pretty near, don't know whether I shall get anything. Father says I don't deserve anything. You can get gooseberries down to S.I. Smith's 1 dozen for 5 cents. He has a funny sign it is. December 15th. Fight at recess today, Gran Miller and Ben Runlet. Ben licked him easy. The fellers got to stumping each other to fight. Mickey Gould said he could lick me and I said he want man enough, and he said if I would come out behind the schoolhouse after school he would show me and I said I would and all the fellers hollered and said they would be there. But after school I thought I ought to go home and split my kindlings and so I went home. A feller ought to do something for his family anyway. I could have licked him if I had wanted to. December 16th. Tatey Finton got licked in school today. Snowed today a little. December 17th. Rained in the night, and then snowed a little. It was awful slippery, and coming out of Church Squire Lane fell down whack, and Mr. Burley caught hold of the fence, and his feet went so fast that they seemed all fuzzy. I tell you if he could run as fast as that he could run a mile a minute. December 18th. Bright and fair. Nothing particular. Oh yes, Skinny Bruce got licked in school. December 19th. Cold as time. Went to a sociable tonight at the Unitario vestry. Can't go again because Keen told mother I was impotent to the people. I want impotent. You see they was making poetry, and all sitting around the vestry. They wanted to play Copenhagen and Post Office and Clap in and Clap out, but Mr. Earl wouldn't let them because it was in church. So they had to play poetry. One person would give a word and then the opposite person would give a word that rhymed with it. It was awful silly. A girl would give the word direction and then a stood cat would say affection and wall his eyes towards the girl. And then another would say miss, and another stood cat would say kiss and then he would wall his eyes, and when it came my turn I said what rhymes with jelly cake, and the girls turned red and the stood cats looked funny, and Mr. Burley said if I couldn't behave I had better go home. Keen needn't have told mother anyway. You just wait, Keen, and see what will happen some day. December 20th. Bully skating. Went after school and skated way up to the eddy. Was going to skate with Lucy Watson but Pute and Beanie hollered so that I didn't dast to. John Toomey got hit with a hockey block right in the snoot and broke his nose. December 21st. Bright and fair. Nothing particular today. Nobody got licked. Old Francis had his hand done up in a sling. He said he had a bile on it. I tell you the fellers were glad. December 22nd. Warm and rainy and spoiled the skating. Couldn't do anything but think of Christmas. December 23rd. Saturday and no skating. Went down to the library to get a book for Sunday. Me and Beanie were sticking pins into the fellers and making them holler, and Joe Parsons the librarian jumped right over the counter and chased us way down to Mr. Ham's coffin shop. He didn't catch us either. Then we went downtown and Billy Sweat lent me a dime novel to read Sunday. It was named Billy Bowlegs, a sequel to Nat Todd the Trapper. Sequel means the things in Nat Todd that was not finished. December 24th. Bright and fair. Christmas tomorrow. Went to Sunday school. Mr. Lovell is our teacher now. December 25th. Christmas. Got a new knife, a red and white scarf, and a bag of S.I. Smith's gooseberries. Pretty good for me. December 26th. Christmas tree at the town hall. Had supper and got a bag of candy and a long string of popcorn. Mr. Lovell took off the presents and his whiskers caught fire, and he hollered "Oh hell" right out. That was pretty good for a Sunday school teacher, wasn't it? Jimmy got eat too much and was sick. December 27th. Beanie has got a new striped shirt, not a false bosom but a whole shirt. Beanie won't speak to me now. Lucy Watson has got a new blue hat with a feather. She won't speak to Keen and Seal either. You just wait, Beanie and Lucy, and see. January 1st, 186 had an awful time in school today. Me and Caw-Caw Harding sat together. When we came in from recess, Caw-Caw reached over and hit me a bat, and I lent him one in the snoot, and he hit me back. We was just fooling, but old Francis called Caw-Caw up front to lick him. I thought if I went up and told him he would say, "Noble boy, go to your seat, I won't lick neither of you." Anyway, I knew that Caw-Caw would tell on me, and so I told old Francis I hit Caw-Caw first, and old Francis said, "Harry, I have had my eye on you for a long time," and he just took us up and slammed us together. And then he would put me down and shake Caw-Caw, and then he would put Caw-Caw down and shake me till my head wobbled, and he turned me upside down, and all the fellers looked upside down, and went round, and somehow I felt silly like and kind of like laughin'. I didn't want to laugh but couldn't help it. And then he talked to us and sent us to our seats and told us to study, and I tried to, but all the words in the book went round, and I felt awful funny and kind of wobbly, and when I went home Mother said something was the matter and I told her, and then I cried. I don't know what I cried for, because I didn't ache any. Father said he would lick me at home when I got licked at school, and perhaps that was why I cried. Anyway, when Father come home I asked him if he was a-going to lick me, and he said not by a damn sight, and he gave me 10 cents, and when I went to bed I got laughin' and crying all to once, and couldn't stop, and Mother sat in my room and kept her hand on my foot until I went to sleep. I dreamt I was fighting all the time. When I get big enough there is going to be a fight between me and old Francis, you see if there ain't. January 2nd, me and Beanie has made up. I told him I had 10 cents, and then he didn't feel so big about his new shirt. Anyway, we went down to S.I. Smith's and got a dozen gooseberries, and then went down to Dr. Dearborn's and got a glass of soda water and took turns drinking it and seeing which could gulp the loudest. Beanie beat. January 3rd. Bright and fair. Went down to Pute's tonight to make hayseed cigars. We made 5 kinds: hayseed, sweet fern, cornsilk, mullein leaves, and grapevine. My mouth tasted awfully all night. January 4th. Bright and fair. Pute didn't come to school today. I guess he was sick. My mouth tasted awfully all day. January 5th. Cloudy and awfully cold. Pute came to school today and got a licking for puting gum on Nigger Bell's seat. Nig sat in it till it dried and then tried to get up and couldn't. Then old Francis come down the aisle and snaked Nigger out, and when he see the gum he asked us who put it there. We all said we didn't, but he licked Pute because he had seen Pute chewing gum. January 6th. It snowed last night and today. Speaking in school today. I spoke the burial of Sir John Moore. Old Francis said he never heard anything worse in his life. I hope he won't tell Father. This afternoon we plugged stud cats. January 7th. Ed Tall has got a goat. The fellers stumped me to hold him by the horns, and he bewed me over in the slosh. Mother said I had no business to be playing on Sunday. January 8th. Bright and fair. There is going to be a nigger show in the town hall tonight. Father says I can't go because I sassed Aunt Sarah. It is Uncle Tom's cabin. January 9th. Bright and fair. Beanie went to the nigger show. He led one of the bloodhounds in the procession and got a ticket. Beanie had on a red coat just like the dogs. He said it was bully. January 10th. Rainy. Nipper Brown is the best scholar in my class. I am the worst. I can lick Nipper easy. January 11th. Bright and fair. After school me and Beanie and Pute and Fatty Melcher and Posy Chadwick and lots of fellers went skating on Fresh River. I was skating backward and I got one leg in a eel hole. Gosh, the water was cold, and before I got home my breeches leg was all froze. January 12th. Nobody got licked in school today. Guess why? Because there wasn't any school. Old Francis was sick. I went skating. January 13th. Bright and, no, it was rainy. Had a spelling mock today in school. Seal and Jenny Morrison stayed up till the last, and then Seal missed and sat down bawling, and Jenny beat. I can't stop to write any more because I am going to the levee with Father. January 14th. 186 went to a big levee last night at the town hall. Bill Morrill and Newell Head and Dave Quimby and Frank Hervey got it up. They had Hook and Payson's Quadrille Band of Haverhill. Father bought a ticket because he was in the custom house and has to be friends with people. It was splendid. Most everybody went all dressed up in blue silk and red and croquet slippers. Ham Perkins and Charlie Lane and Charlie Piper and Chick Randall and Dan Ranlett and Grace Morrill and the Head Girls and Sweat Girls and Carrie Tall and Sarah Clark, J. Albert Clark's sister and the Melcher boys, and they all hopped round pretty lively, I tell you. I stayed until 12 o'clock and listened to the band. I never had so good time in my life. January 15th. I am all speckled over. Mother says she is afraid I have got chicken pox. I guess I have been in the hen coop too much. January 16th. The speckles have all gone of. Dr. Perry says I eat too many donuts. January 18th. Bright and fair. Yesterday too and day before yesterday I have forgot. January 19th. Snowed all day. Me and Beanie is mad. January 20th. Father is sick because he eat too much salt fish and potato and pork. He is awful cross and hit me a bat today because I left the door open. I guess he will be sorry when I am dead. January 21st. Bright and fair. Went to church in the morning and in the afternoon greased some paper and troussed some pictures. January 22nd. I had to stay in the wood box today for whispering to Whacker with the cover down. I like it because they is a peephole in the box, and you can see the fellers and they can't see you. By and by Gimme Fitzgerald whispered and old Francis put him in too, and we took turns peeping. January 23rd. It rained hard all day and we had one season. Beanie came over and we made up and plaid in the barn making fly boxes. January 24th. Nothing much today, rainy in the morning and froze at night. January 25th. Bright and fair. Everything was covered with ice, and when Father started for the depot he tumbled down the front steps from the top to the bottom. Mother says he went bumpity bump and his hat went one way and his dinner box went the other. I heard him swearing awfully about that damn boy, and I guess he would have come up and licked time out of me, but he had to hurry to get the train. January 26th. Just as soon as the skating comes it has to snow and spoil it. January 27th. I couldn't go out of the yard this afternoon because I didn't put ashes on the front steps before Father fell down, and so Pute and Beanie and Whacker and Nibby Hartwell and Diddley Colquitt and Nipper and Priscilla and Jim Wingate and lots of the fellers came over and we had a snowball fight. Mother says she hopes Father won't keep me at home another afternoon. January 28th. Bright and fair. It never rains Sundays so a feller can't go to church. January 29th. Nothing particular today. It always seems harder to go to school Mondays, more fellers gets licked Mondays than any day in the week. I got stood on the platform with my head in the corner for looking of my book today. January 30th. Bright and fair. I have got a awful chilblain on my heel. January 31st. Bright and fair. I was glad today was Wednesday. In the afternoon I went skating. The students played baseball on the ice. February 1st. Bright and fair. Pretty soon it will be Washington's birthday, and then all the boys can ring the town bell at noon and at night. February 2nd. Cloudy but no snow. Tomorrow will be Saturday. There is only 2 days in the week that is worth anything, and that is Wednesday and Saturday except in vacation. February 3rd. Snowed like time all the forenoon. In the afternoon me and Pute and Beanie rolled up some big snowballs. Then tonight we put all the balls together, and made a big snowman right in front of Mrs. Lewis's front door. Then we put a old hat on it, and hung a piece of paper on it, and wrote "Man Wanted" on the paper. Tomorrow all the people who go to church will see it and laugh because Mr. Lewis got a divorce. There will be some fun tomorrow. February 5th. I couldn't write anything last night because I got sent to bed and got a licking. I tell you, we got in a awful scrape. Sunday morning me and Pute and Beanie went out early to see our snowman. He was there, and when people began to go by they began to laugh, and most of the people said it was the funniest thing they ever see, and whoever put it there was a pretty smart feller. So we said we did it, and Pute said he thought of it first, and Beanie said he did, and I said I did most of the work. Well, pretty soon some people came along and looked at it, and said it was a shame, and they went over to pull of the paper, and she came out and see it, and she took a broom and knocked it over and broke it all up. And then she went right down to my house to tell Father. Then she went over to Beanie's house and then up to Pute's. Well, after church Father took me over to her house. And Beanie was there with his father, and Pute with his father. She said she would have us arrested for it. But they talked a long time, and after a while she said if our fathers would lick us and make us saw and split a cord of wood she wouldn't say no more about it. When we went out Father said, "I never see such damn boys, did you Brad, did you Watts?" And they said they never did. So we have got to saw and split that wood, and we got licked too. February 6th. Bright and fair. Me and Pute and Beanie sawed and split some wood for Mrs. Lewis. February 7th. Bright and fair. Sawed some more wood, me and Pute and Beanie. February 8th. Bright and fair. Split some more wood, me and Pute and Beanie. February 9th. Fatty Melcher and Caw-Caw Harding, Chitter Robinson and Mado Thurston helped saw some more wood. February 10th. Bright and fair. This afternoon Whack Posey and Boog Chadwick, Dutchy Siemens, Nigger Bell Pop Clark, Shinny Thing and Pile would all come down with saws and axes and helped us saw that wood. We worked all the afternoon and got it done and piled up before dark. Then Mrs. Lewis asked us in and gave us some bully doughnuts and some sweat and water, and we sung and told stories, and before we went we told her we was sorry we built the snowman, and she said she was sorry too. Then when we went away we give 3 cheers for her. February 11th. Bright and fair. I shan't forget last Sunday very soon. February 12th. Rainy today. I don't care because I haven't got to saw any more wood. February 13th. Still rainy. I don't care. February 14th. Pretty cold today. Going to have a new kind of spelling mock tomorrow. February 15th. Got to the head in spelling today. Old Francis makes us all stand up in the aisle and gives us a lot of words to spell, and then we write them down on our slates, and then the head feller or girl changes slates with the foot feller or girl, and so on, and then old Francis writes the words on the blackboard, and then we mark each other's slates. John Flanagan was the foot feller, and had my slate. Well, most of John's words was wrong. But John marked mine all right. I guess John didn't know it, but there was 4 or 5 of my words spelled wrong. I set out to tell old Francis, but didn't dast to because he licked me for telling that I pious-stead Caw-Caw Harding that time. So I kept still and kept at the head, and John kept at the foot. I hope John will do it again tomorrow. February 16th. Beat in spelling today. February 17th. Beat in spelling today. February 19th. Beat in spelling today. Old Francis is going to give a prize tomorrow. I told Father I was pretty sure to get it, and he said it will be the first one. Aunt Sarah asked him if he took many prizes, and he said he didn't get much of a prize when he got me. I guess he won't say that tomorrow when I bring my prize home. February 20th. I didn't get the prize. You see, yesterday John Flanagan spelt more words right than Gimme Fitzgerald, and Gimme went to the foot. When we marked slates, Gimme marked 9 of my words wrong out of 20, and I had to go down most to where John Flanagan was. Old Francis said he didn't believe I had ought to have stayed at the head so long as I did, and I was afraid he would lick me and John, but he didn't. He said he was ashamed and disappointed in me, but I guess he was not the only one who was disappointed. I had told Pute and Beanie I would treat on what father would give me for getting the prize. Pute and Beanie was both mad, and are going to lay for gimme. February 21st, I forgot to say what the weather was most every day this week. It has been bright and fair most of the time, only it snowed 2 days and rained most of 1 day. Bright and fair today and cold as time. February 23rd, cloudy and cold. Pop Clark had to crawl through a chair today. He went through so fast old Francis only hit him 2 bats. Tatey Finton and Nigger Bell both got licked. Tatey didn't cry or holler a bit, but Nigger hollered just like a girl. I suppose Nigger was more of a man than that. February 24th, Beanie and Pute got punching today in school and old Francis made them stand on the platform with their arms round each other's neck all the forenoon. I bet they felt pretty cheap. Bright and fair. February 25th, I have got a new pair of breeches at Earl & Cuts. I guess Beanie ain't the only one which has good clothes either. February 26th. Nothing particular today. Went down to Old Head's shop to see the Studcats ride velocipedes. There is going to be a race in the town hall tomorrow night. February 27th. Father said I could go to the velocipede race if I wouldn't miss splitting my kindlings for a week. I did miss them twice, but Mother didn't tell him, and if he don't ask her before tonight I am all right. February 28th. Last night went to the velocipede race. It was just ripping. I got down before the door opened. Bob Carter came pretty soon, but he wouldn't let us in until the ticket man came. Mr. Watson was the ticket man, and he let me and Beanie and Shinny Thing in free. They had a lot of seats in the center of the hall, and the rest round the edges, and an open track around the hall. On the platform sat Bill Morrill and Dave Quimby and John Getchell and Eben Folsom. Most of the fellers in the race were Studcats, and most of the Studcats, and the girls had the seats in the center of the hall. The Studcats who were to race were Stone and Stewart and Lee and Clifford and August Belmont and Swift and Nichols and George Kent and Cutler and Johnny Heald and Gear and Burley and Bob Morrison. The townies were Charlie Gearish and Dr. Prey. Each feller rode round the hall twice to get going like time, and then Dave Quimby hollered go, and he had to ride around the hall until he had rid a quarter of a mile. When the Studcats rode, all the other Studcats yelled and the girls waved their handkerchiefs and the band played, and the excitement was dreadful. After a while Dr. Prey came out and all the townies got up and cheered and the band played the Star-Spangled Banner, because Dr. fit in the war, and Doctor took off his hat and bowed and then rode round like time. He rode faster than most every one of them except Stone and Stewart and Lee and Clifford and Belmont and Swift. I guess if Doc hadn't fit so hard in the war he would have beat them all. And then Charlie Gearish came out and all the townies hollered again, and Charlie made his legs go so fast that they couldn't hardly see them, and just before the last time around his velocipede slipped and Charlie went fluking over 3 settees. He jumped on his velocipede again and went around with his breeches all torn, but he didn't get around quite quick enough to beat Stone. Then the townies yelled and said it was a cheat, and the Studcats hissed, and some of the townies said they could lick the Studcats. And the Studcats said they wasn't man enough, and it looked as if there was going to be a row when Charlie Gearish got up and said he was beat fair, and there wasn't anything to get mad about, and that he would like to shake hands with the Studcat which beat him, and he would like to race him another time, but he couldn't then because he hurt his leg. And then they shook hands and every one felt bully, and the Studcats said hooray for Charlie and the townies hollered hooray for Stone, and Bill Morrill made a speech and give the prize to Stone and the band played and we all went home. I bet Doc Prey and Charlie Gearish can lick any 2 Studcats in the hall. Mar. 2. I went to a show in the town hall tonight. It was a singing show called The Haymakers. It was splendid. Mr. Gale got it up. They have been practicing all winter. Alice Jewell was a dairy maid and Charlie Lane was a katydid, and lots of others sung. It was splendid. Mar. 3. Cloudy but no rain. Went down to Langley's store for some juju paste, saw a fight. Old Kais tried to arrest Bill Hardit, and Bill lammed time out of him, and after a while old Swain came up and arrested him. Mar. 4. Bright and fair. Went to church today. The furnace smoked so the people had to come home. They say they will have it fixed before next Sunday. I hope not. Mar. 5. School closes tomorrow. I got kept after school tonight for whispering to Caw-Caw. Mar. 6. School closed today and we voted for prizes. Mr. Gordon give 4 prizes for the 2 best fellers and 2 best girls for the term. So we voted for them. Most of the fellers wanted to vote for Jenny Morrison because she was the prettiest girl there and can go the Grecian bend better than any girl in the school. And most of the girls didn't like Jenny Morrison and wanted to vote for Dora Moses and Mary Louvain, and the girls wanted to vote for Lise Moses because he was polite to them and rather go with the girls than the boys, and we holler at him. But he can fight, for I saw him lick Jim Early one day, and Jim Early can wrestle better than anyone but Jack Melville. Well, most of the fellows wanted to vote for Teddy Finton or Pop Clark or Skinny Bruce because they never get mad or cry when they are licked and make lots of fun. But we knew they couldn't get the prize, for they are all the time raising time and getting licked, and so we voted for Honey Donovan and Moses Gordon. And when the votes was counted, Dora Moses and Mary Louvain got the prizes for the girls and Mose Gordon and Nigger Bell for the boys. That was all right about Dora Moses and Mary Louvain because they was the best girls and always went together. But we didn't like it very well about Mose and Nigger. Only we thought that so long as Moses' father give the prizes, Mose ought to have one. I guess most of the girls must have voted for Nig, because they was mad with Lise Moses. I know what they was mad at too. Then the first class give old Francis a present of some books, and when he turned over the leaves there was $20 there, and old Francis was surprised and made a fine speech, and the people all clapped because he made such a good speech. I heard him saying it over the night before when I was kept after school. No school for 2 weeks. Mar. 7. When my father was a boy he was the best fighter in this town. Mar. 9. Went down to Fatty Melcher's today to make a violin. We cut a piece of wood the shape of a violin, then take some horsehairs and strike them over a bridge, and you can play a tune on them. In school I learned to play on a piece of India rubber. You pull a piece of elastic out of your Congress boot, and hold it in your teeth, and pull it tight, and snap it with your fingers, and you can play tunes that you can hear but no one else can. Old Francis saw me snapping the elastic and came and took it away. I have got plenty more in my boot. I am saving money to buy me a cornet. When I get enough I am going to play in the band. Mar. 10. Pleasant day. Old S.I. Smith's big white dog and a bulldog had an awful fight today. They licked and they had to squirt water on them to separate them. They didn't make no noise, only just hung right onto each other's gozzles. My Aunt Sarah said it was dreadful, and she stayed to the window to see how dreadful it was. Mar. 11. 186 went to church in the morning. The furnace was all right. Mr. Leonard preached about loving our enemies, and told everyone if he had any angry feelings toward anyone to go to him and shake hands and see how much better you would feel. I know how it is, because when me and Beanie are mad we don't have any fun, and when we make up the one who is to blame always wants to treat. Why, when Beanie was mad with me because I went home from Gil Steele's surprise party with Lizzie Tall, Ed Toll's sister, he wouldn't speak to me for 2 days, and when we made up he treated me to ice cream with 2 spoons and he let me dip twice to his once. He took pretty big dips to make up. Beanie is mad if any of the fellers go with Lizzie Tall. She likes Beanie better than she does any of the fellers, and Beanie ought to be satisfied. But sometimes he acts mad when I go down there to fight roosters with addition. I guess he needn't worry much. No feller isn't going to leave a fighting roosters to go with no girls. Well, I most forgot what I was going to say, but after church I went up to Mickey Gould, who was going to fight me behind the schoolhouse, and said, "Mickey, let's be friends," and Mickey said, "How old Skinny, I can lick you in 2 minutes," and I said, "You ain't man enough," and he called me a knock-kneed puke, and I called him a wall-eyed lummox, and he give me a paste in the eye, and I gave him a good one in the mouth, and then we sled and Mickey threw me and I turned him, and he got hold of my new false bosom and I got hold of his hair, and the fellers all hollered, "Hit him, Mickey, paste him, Skinny," and Mr. Purington, Pute's father, pulled us apart, and I had Mickey's paper collar and necktie, and some of his hair, and he had my false bosom, and when I got home father made me go to bed and stay there all the afternoon for fighting, but I guess he didn't like my losing my false bosom. Anyway, he asked me how many times I hit Mickey and which licked. He let me get up at supper time. Next time I try to love my enemy, I am going to lick him first. Went to a Sunday school concert in the evening. Keen and Seal sung Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep. There was a lot of people sung together, and Mr. Gale beat time. Charlie Girish played the violin and Miss Packard sung. I was scart when Keen and Seal sung, for I was afraid they would break down, but they didn't, and people said they sung like night hawks. I guess if they knowed how night hawks sung they wouldn't say much. Father felt pretty big, and to hear him talk you would think he did the singing. He give them 10 cents a piece. I didn't get none. You just wait, old man, till I get my cornet. Went to a corcus last night. Me and Beanie were in the hall in the afternoon helping Bob Carter sprinkle the floor and put on the sawdust. The floor was all shiny with wax and awfully slippery. So Bob got us to put on some water to take off the shiny wax. Well, right in front of the platform there is a low platform where they get up to put in their votes, and then step down, and Beanie said, "Don't put any water there, only just dry sawdust." So I didn't. Well, that night we went early to see the fun. Jim Luverin got up and said there was one man which was the oldest voter in town, and he ought to vote the first. The name of this distinguished citizen was John Quincy and Pollard. Then old Mr. Pollard got up and put in his vote, and when he stepped down his heels flew up and he went down whack on the back of his head, and 2 men lifted him up and lugged him to a seat, and then Ed Deborn, him that rings the town bell, stepped up pretty lively and went flat and swore terrible, and me and Beanie nearly died, we laughed so. Well, it kept on, people didn't know what made them fall, and Jim Odlin sat right down in his new umbrella, and then they sent me downstairs for a pail of wet sawdust, and when I was coming up I heard an awful whang, and when I got up in the hall they were lugging old Mr. Stickney off to die, and they put water on his head and lugged him home in a hack. They say Bob Carter will lose his place. Me and Beanie don't know what to do. If we don't tell, Bob will lose his place, and if we do we will get licked. Mar. 12. Mr. Stickney is all right today. Gosh, you bet me and Beanie are glad. Mar. 13. 186 Bright and Fair. Mr. Gravel has bought Old Head's carriage shop. He is a dandy and wears shiny riding boots and a stove-pipe hat and a velvet coat, and goes with Dan Ranlett and George Perkins and Johnny Gibson and the other dandies. I went down today and watched Fatty Walker stripe some wheels. Mar. 14. Cloudy. Elkins and Graves had an auction tonight. Beanie got 10 cents for going round town ringing a bell and hollering auction. I went with Beanie and it was lots of fun. Beanie would entreat. He says he is saving money for something. I know what it is a valentine for Lizzie Toll. It was mean of Beanie not to treat because I did as much hollering as he did. Mar. 15. The funniest thing happened today you ever saw. After breakfast me and Father took a walk and then went and sat down on the big school steps. Father was telling me some of the things he and Jim Melcher used to do. Father must have been a ripper when he was young. Well, anyway, while we was talking old Ike Shute came along through the schoolyard. Ike wears specs and always carries a little basket on his arm. He can't see very well, and Father said to me, "Now you just keep still and you will see some fun," and when I came along Father changed his voice so that it sounded awfully growly and said, "Where in the devil are you going with that basket?" And Ike was scart most to death, and said, "Only a little way down here, sir," and Father said, "Move on, sir, and move damn lively," and I nearly died laughing to see Ike hyper. Well, after a while I see Ike coming back with old Swain and old Kais the policeman. I tell you I was scart, but Father only laughed and said, "You keep still and I will fix it all right." So when they came up he said to old Kais, "What is the trouble, Philander?" And he said, "Mr. Shute here has been threatened by some drunken rascal." And Father looked awfully surprised and said, "That is an infernal shame. When did it happen, Isaac?" And Ike said, "About 15 minutes ago," and Father said, "We have been here about as long as that, and I didn't see the scoundrel." "How did he look, Isaac?" And Ike said, "I couldn't see him very well, George, but he was a big man, and he had a awful deep voice," and Father said, "Did he stagger any?" And Ike said, "I couldn't see whether he did or not, but I could tell he was drunk by his voice." So old Swain and old Kais went down behind the schoolhouse and off through the carriage shop yard to see if they could find him, and me and father walked home with Ike to protect him, and father said, "Now, Isaac, if anyone insults you again, just come to me, and if I can catch him I will break every bone in his body." And father and Ike shook hands, and Ike shook hands with me, and then we went home, and father began to laugh and laughed all the way home, and then he told mother and Aunt Sarah, and they said it was a shame to play such a trick upon him, and father laughed all the more and said Ike hadn't had so much exercise for a year, and it would do him good and give him something to think about. Anyway, they said it was a shame to teach me such things, and father said he would rather I would be tough than be like Ike, and Aunt Sarah said I never would be half as good as Ike, for he never did a wrong thing in his life, and father laughed and said he didn't dast to, for his mother would shut him in the closet. It was awfully funny, but I guess they was right. I shall never be half as good as Ike. I wonder if old Swain and old Kais have caught that man yet. Mar. 16. Pute dreamed 18 marbles and 2 chinies out of me today. We was playing first in the whole school today. Sailed boats in the brook in J. Albert Clark's garden and got pretty wet. Mar. 17. Scott Brigham has got some little flying squirrels. He is going to get me one for 35 cents. I am going to take it out of my cornet money. Mar. 18. Father won't let me play marbles in earnest. It ain't any fun dreening a feller and then giving them back. I bet father didn't when he was a boy. Mar. 19. Scott Brigham brought my squirrel today and I paid him 35 cents, 3 10-cent scripts and 5 cents. I have got it in a bird cage. Mar. 20. My squirrel got out of the cage last night, and father found him in the water pail drowned. Father got up in the night and got a dipper and drank some water out of that pail. He didn't eat any breakfast because he was thinking that the squirrel might have been in the pail then. I wonder if it was. Anyway, 35 cents of my cornet money has gone up. Mar. 23. School today. Went down to Pute's to draw pictures. Charlie Woodbury can draw the best, then Pute, and then me. Beanie don't like to draw. We was talking about what we was going to be when we grew up. Charlie Woodbury is going to be a picture painter, Pute is going to be a lawyer, Potter Gorham and Chick Chickering are going to stuff birds for a living, Beanie is going to be a hack driver, Jim Wingate is going to run a newspaper, Caw-Caw Harding is going to be Episcopal minister because he says they only have to read their speeches out of a book, Nipper Brown is going to be a professor. Priscilla Hobbs is going to play a organ in the Baptist church. Prizzle can play 3 tunes now on a little organ. I am going to be a cornet player like Bruce Brigham. Cornet players can go to all the dances and fairs and processions and are invited in and treated when people are married, and they serenade them at night, and they don't have to work either. Mar. 25. Almost as warm as summer, went to church and Sunday school. Beanie has got a job blowing the organ for Kate Wells. He only let the wind go out 2 times today. It was funny because when the organ stopped, Mr. Wood, who was singing, let out an awful hoot before he knowed what he was doing. Beanie will lose his job if he does it again. Mar. 29. 186. The Toads has come out. Fine warm day. Me and Potter Gorham have been catching toads this afternoon. They sit in the puddles and peep. Folks think it is frogs, but most of it is toads. Potter got 23 and I got 18. Tonight I put my toads in a box in the kitchen after the folks went to bed. In the night they all got out of the box and began to hop round and peep. Mother heard it, and waked father, and they listened. When I waked up, father was coming through my room with a big cane and a little tin lamp. He had put on his breeches and was in his shirt tail, and I said, "What are you going to lick me for now? I haven't done nothing." And he said, "Keep still, there is someone downstairs." And mother said, "Don't go down, George." And father said, "Least'n I can hear him giving a whistle for his confederate. I will jump in and give him a whack on the coconut." I had forgot all about the toads, and you bet I was scart. Well, father, he crept down easy and blowed out his light and opened the door quick and just lammed round with his club. Then I heard him say, "What in hell have I stepped on? Bring a light here." Then I thought of the toads, and you bet I was scarter than before. Mother went down with a light, and then I heard him say, "I will be cussed, the whole place is full of toads." Then mother said, "Did you ever?" And father said he never did, and it was some more of that damn boy's works, and he yelled upstairs for me to come down and catch them. So I went down and caught them and put them out all but two that father had stepped on, and they had to be swept up. Then all the folks came down in their nightgowns, and I went upstairs lively and got into bed and pulled the clothes round me tight. But it didn't do any good, for father came up and licked me. He didn't lick me very hard because I guess he was glad it wasn't a burglar, and if it hadn't been for me it might have been burglars instead of toads. Mar. 30, bright and fair, went out with Potter Gorham. Saw some toads, 2 robins, and a bluebird. Gosh, it makes a feller feel good to see birds and toads and live things. Mar. 31, April Fool Day tomorrow. I am laying for Beanie. Old Francis licked 5 fellers today because they sung wrong when we was singing Speak Kindly, it is better far to rule by love than fair. April 1st. Awful cold and rainy. I was going to write a love letter to Beanie and sign Lizzie Toll's name to it, but I told father about it for fun, and he said that it was forgery, and that I could be prosecuted and sent to jail. So I didn't. Tonight me and Beanie rung 5 doorbells for April Fool. April 2nd. Been trying to get rid of some warts. Pute says if you hook a piece of pork after dark, rub it on the warts and say Arum, Irum, Irum, Orum, Urum, and Nurum 3 times, turn round twice and throw the pork through a window, then the warts will all be gone the next day. Me and Beanie is going to try it tomorrow. April 3rd. Bright and fair. Didn't get a chance to hook the pork. April 4th. The band played in the band room tonight. It was warm enough to have the windows open, and we could hear it. I sat out in the schoolyard till 10 o'clock to hear it, and father came out and walked me home. Beanie was mad because I cared more for the band than for getting rid of the warts. April 6th. Didn't write anything last night, was too scart. I never was so scart in all my life before. Me and Beanie came awful near getting in jail. We didn't know where to hook the pork. I went to our cellar, but father was down there making vinegar all the evening. Then we went to Beanie's cellar, but Mr. Watson was sitting on the cellar door. So Beanie told his father that a man was looking for him to see about a horse, and Mr. Watson started down to the club stable. Then Beanie hooked the pork and rubbed it over his warts, and then I rubbed it over my warts, and we said Arum, Irum, Irum, Orum, Urum, and Nurum 3 times just as Pute said, turned round twice, and I plugged the pork right through a gaslight. Just then the gas man came along. He yelled at us, and jumped out of his wagon, and went for us. We ran down through the schoolyard as fast as we could hyper. There is a hollow in the corner of the schoolyard by Bill Morrow's backyard, and there is a little hole in the bottom of the fence where the fellers crawl through when the football goes into his garden. We skinned through that hole just in time. The gas man tried to crawl through, but he couldn't. Then he climbed the high fence, but while he was doing that we ran across the carriage factory yard and down by the old brewery up Bow Street and home. I went to bed pretty lively, and so did Beanie. Gosh, but we was scart. April 7th. One of Beanie's warts has gone. April 8th. Bright and fair. My warts have not gone. April 9th. Bright and fair. My warts have not gone. April 10th. Cloudy but no rain. My warts have not gone. April 11th. Rainy. I have got 2 more warts. I hadn't ought to have broke that gaslight. April 12th. I have got another. April 13th. Bully day. Me and Potter Gorham and Chick Chickering went out after toads today. I got 14, but I didn't take them home, you bet. April 15th. Bright and fair. We all went to church today to see the Lanes. They come from New York, and when they go to church everybody goes to see them. There was a boy with them named Willie. I bet I could lick him. April 16th. Nothing particular today. Don't feel very well, kind of headachy and backache. April 20th. Have been sick for 4 days. Went to school Monday and had to come home. When I got home I fell down on the steps, and Mother and Aunt Sarah came out and got me in the house and put water on my head and rubbed my hands, and then the doctor came and said, "Well, Joanna, children are a good deal of trouble," and then he felt of my wrist and said hum, and then he looked at my tongue and said hum again, and then he pried open my mouth and looked down my throat and said hum. And then he pulled off my clothes and looked me over right before Mother and Aunt Sarah and said, "Well, he ain't speckled any." Then he said, "What have you given him, Joanna?" And Mother said, "Nothing." And the doctor said, "All right, give him some more." And Mother said, "I haven't given him anything, doctor." And then he walked around the room and picked up some things and looked at them, and then he gave me some of the worst tasting stuff I ever took. Then he said, "I guess he will be better tomorrow," and then he looked at some more things and went home. I didn't sleep very well that night but was awful hot, and my head ached fearful. Mother was in my room every time I waked up, and Sarah too. Next day I had the doctor again. He looked at some pictures and things and told Mother to give me some more. I always feel better when the doctor comes in. He don't scare a feller to death. Well, the next day I felt a little better and tried to sit up and have my breeches on, but I had to lay down again, my head ached so, and after a while my head felt better, and as I lay there I could look out of the window, and it seemed as if little chains that you could see through like glass were floating up and down. They were about an inch long. Well, I watched them till I almost went to sleep, and just as I was most asleep I heard Beanie out in the street holler, "Say, Pute, did you know that Pluppy is going to die?" And Pute said, "Course I did. Why don't you tell me some news?" And Beanie said, "I heard he swallowed a peach stone," and Pute said it was liver complaint, and then I heard someone say, "You boys shet up." Gosh, you bet I was scart. I hadn't thought of dying. I began to howl and holler for Mother. She came running in and I told her I was going to die, and I told her about breaking the gaslight, and a lot of other things, and she told me the doctor said I was getting better, and I would sit up tomorrow. Well, I better then and wished I hadn't told Mother about the gaslight because I knew she would make me tell Father. Well, Mother sat by my bed all the afternoon, and read me some out of Billy Bowlegs. Just think of her doing that. So when supper time came I eat a little toast and had some currant jelly. When Father come home, Mother told him about the gaslight, and all he said was I would have to pay for it out of my cornet money. I thought he would keep me in for a month. I guess Mother must have talked to him. That night Father slept on a lounge in my room. I went to sleep most as soon as he come in. After a while I dreamt I was tied on a saw log, just going nearer and nearer to the saw, and the saw was a-going scratch-soo, scratch-soo, scratch-soo. Well, I tried to pull away but I couldn't move, and I tried to holler and I couldn't make a yip, and just before the saw sawed into me I woke up. Gosh, you bet I was glad, but the funny part was that I could hear the saw going scratch-soo, 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 and what do you think it was? It was Father snoring. Gosh, you ought to have heard him. Well, at first I laughed, but by and by I wanted to go to sleep, and Father snoring so loud I couldn't till Mother came in and told him to go to bed, and she laid on the sofa all night. The next day I sat up and had my breeches on and sat up to the window all day. I saw Beanie and Pute and I knocked on the window and waved my claw at them. I am going out tomorrow. April 22nd. I went out today. It was real warm. I didn't go to church because I had been sick. I let my rooster out to fight J. Albert Clark's. They were fighting good when I looked up, and there was Father looking over the fence. He made me stop the fight and shut my rooster up. I wonder if he would have stopped them if I hadn't been there. I got 2 eggs today, the old Brahma that I swaped for with Ed Toll, and a Bolton Grey that John Adams give me. April 23rd. I went to school today. I didn't have to recite because I had been sick. If I don't get worse I can go to Ms. Packard's concert tomorrow. Hope it won't rain. April 24th. Bright and fair, and it didn't rain tonight, so I went to the concert. All the girls was flowers. Keen was a crocus and had to come out and sing first because the crocus is the first flower that comes out. She sung I am the first of all the flowers to greet the eyes of spring. Jenny Morrison was a touch me not and sat in the top of a rock and sung touch me not, let me alone. Nell Toll was a piney or a sunflower, I have forgot which. Jenny Morrison and Keen and Nell Toll are the best singers for their size in town. Father thinks Keen can sing the best. He feels pretty big about Keen. I told him so one day and he said he had to because I didn't amount to anything. I think Jenny Morrison can sing the best, but don't tell him so for he would give me a bat. April 25th, 186 can't go downtown for a week because I sassed J. Albert Clark, that is J. Albert Clark says I sassed him, but I didn't. Beanie had been working for J. Albert raking up leaves in his garden. J. Albert was a-going to give him 10 cents for it, and me and Beanie was a-going to divide up on gooseberries and juju paste, but Beanie didn't dast to ask J. Albert for his pay because he had raked all the leaves under J. Albert's front steps, and he was afraid J. Albert would find out about it and not pay him. Beanie wanted me to ask him, but I didn't dast to because I let my rooster out to fight J. Albert's last Sunday, and J. Albert don't believe in fighting roosters. Last night he was setting on his steps with some company, and he had on his best lavender breeches and his best blue coat. So Beanie said, "Tell you what, Pluppy, you set on your steps and I will set on my steps, and we will holler across the street about the money that J. Albert owes me." So Beanie he went across the street to his steps and he hollered over, "Hi there, Pluppy, have you got any chink?" And I hollered back, "No, Beanie, I haven't got a cent." And Beanie he hollered I should have 10 cents at J. Albert Clark would pay me what he owes me. And I hollered, "Why in time don't he pay you?" And Beanie hollered, "I guess he hasn't got any chink." And I hollered, "He has probably spent all his chink in buying them lavender breeches." And Beanie he hollered, "Well, if J. Albert Clark needs the money more, then I do he can have it." Well, while we was hollering, Mr. Head and the head girls who was setting on their steps got up and went into the house laughing, and the company at J. Albert's all laughed, and J. Albert came down and beckoned to Beanie, and Beanie he went running over to get his 10 cents, and J. Albert he said, "Elbridge, that is Beanie's name, Elbridge, you could have your money any time if you had asked me for it decently. But now I shall not pay you for a week, and I shall not employ you any more." Tell you what, Beanie came over to my steps feeling pretty cheap, and we was talking about it when Mother called me in and sent me upstairs, and said she would tell Father as soon as he came home. So I went upstairs and looked out of the window just in time to see Beanie's father lugging Beanie in by the neck. Well, that night after Father got home he jawed me and said I couldn't go downtown for a week and made me go to J. Albert's right before the company and ask his forgiveness, and Beanie had to too. J. Albert was a pretty good fellow and said it was all right, and didn't want our fathers not to let us go downtown, but Father said I must learn to be respectable to my elders. Gosh, we didn't know J. Albert was a elder. We knowed Elder Stevens and Elder Stewart and Deacon Gooch, and we always was respectable to them, and if we had knowed that J. Albert Clark was a elder we wouldn't have sassed him for nothing. April 26th. Yesterday and day before it was bright and fair, and yesterday was as warm as summer. Today, it was cold, and it snowed a little. Just enough to make the ground look as if it was covered with salt. The birds looked all humped up. I bet the frog's hind legs is about froze. It is raining now. If I was a frog I wouldn't come out of the mud until summer. Perhaps they can't stay under more than 6 months. April 27th. Warm again. 2 eggs today. I have got another hen. William Perry Moulton gave it to me. It is a leghorn, and his other hens licked it, and made its comb bloody, and so he gave it to me. It was on the nest today but did not lay. I went to church. Mr. Cram preached. He talked all about birds and flowers, and I liked it. April 28th. Bright and fair. All 3 hens were on the nest but didn't lay. April 29th. No eggs today. Mother said the hens cackled all the morning. Bright and fair. April 30th. I don't see what the matter is with my hens. I haven't got 1 egg this week. Father said there was a rat in the coop. I got a steel trap of Sam Dyer, and tonight I set it in the coop. I put a piece of cheese on it. Tomorrow morning I guess Mr. Rat won't steal any more eggs. May 1st. What do you think? This morning I got up to get my rat, and I found that my best hen, the Bolton Grey that John Adams gave me, had tried to pick the cheese out of the trap, and the trap had caught her by the neck and killed her. I felt most bad enough to cry. I thought I could get up before the hen did. I went to the May breakfast today. It was Mayfair Day and they had a breakfast. Me and Pute, Beanie, Whacker and Posy Chadwick, Mickey Gould, Pop Clark, Priscilla Hobbs, Chick Chickering, Potter Gorham, Pilewood, Curly Connor, and all the fellers were there. We had a good time and eat till just before school time, and we had to hyper so as not to be late. May 2nd. No eggs today. Both hens went on the nest. I am going to lay for that rat with my bow gun. May 3rd. What do you think? This noon I sat in the hen coop 1 hour. The Brahma went on the nest and sat a while and came off and cackled. Then I looked, and she had laid an egg. I left the egg there and hid behind a barrel and got my bow gun ready for the rat. Well, the leghorn hen went on the nest, and I supposed she was a-going to lay, but she broke right into that egg and began to gobble it up. I was so mad that I let ding at her with the bow gun, and just then she stuck up her head, and the arrow took her right in the back of the head. Well, I wish you could have seen her. She hollered one little pip and then went right out of the nest backwards and flapped round awful. I picked her up and she was dead. I didn't mean to kill her, I only wanted to make her jump and learn her not to eat eggs. Oh dear, I don't know what Father will say when he finds it out. May 5th, 186 saw a bully fight today. Chris Staples and Charlie Clark. Charlie is visiting his Uncle J. Albert Clark, the feller that we sassed. That is, he said we did, but we didn't. Charlie is a city feller, he lives in Chelsea, and think he knows a pile about things and gets mad if we call him names. Now every feller who amounts to anything has a nickname, and some of them have 2 or 3. My nicknames are Pluppy and Skinny and Pole-Legs, and Beanie is called Bullethead and sometimes Fatty. I told Charlie that if I called him Charlie the fellers would call him Sissy or Mary, and he better agree to let me call him Bulldog or Tomcat or Diddley or Gobbler or some nickname which would mean something. But he said he would lam the head off of any feller which called him names. Well, you just see what trouble he got into for not having a nickname. He would have knowed better than that if he hadn't lived in Chelsea. Well, today me and Charlie was setting on his steps. Beanie was mad because I was going with Charlie, and he had gone riding with his father, and he felt pretty big because his father let him drive. Well, while we were sitting there along came Chris Staples, who carries papers for Lane and Rowland's store, and Chris hollered over, "Hello, Pole-Legs." Charlie hadn't heard anyone call me Pole-Legs. And I said I wouldn't stand that if I was you, Charlie. Now let's see you lam the head off of him. And Charlie he started across the road and walked up to Chris and said, "Who in time are you calling Pole-Legs?" And Chris wasn't going to back down and said, "You." And Charlie said, "Just drop them papers and I will knock your face right off." And Chris dropped his papers and they went at it. It was the best fight I have seen this year. They fit from Mr. Heads down to Jim Ellison's corner, and Chris licked time out of Charlie, and Charlie began to yell and give up, and then Chris let go of his hair and told him he was too smart, and that it was me he was calling Pole-Legs and not him, and he better not be so smart another time. And Chris he picked up his papers and went off with a great slit in his jacket and his necktie way round on one side. And Charlie came home howling, and Aunt Clark, Charlie's grandmother, came out and said, "That is what you get, Charlie, for quarreling. See how much better Harry feels." And I said, "Yes, ma'am. Charlie is never going to speak to me again." May 7th. Beanie was pretty mad when I told him about the fight because he didn't see it. I guess he will find it don't pay to get mad with me. I saw Charlie today, but he didn't speak. He has got a black eye. Chris has got a funny-looking nose on one side. May 8th. Chitter Robinson went in swimming today. I bet it was cold. May 9th. Went down to the high schoolyard tonight to hear the band play. They have got a new leader, a Mr. Ashman of Boston. He can play the cornet with one hand. I went down today to pay the gas man for the gaslight I broke. It cost $1 and I have only got 87 cents for my cornet. Sometimes I don't believe I shall ever get that cornet. Scott Brigham can blow a bugle. A bugle is like a cornet, only a cornet has 3 keys and a bugle is all covered with flappers and curly things where you put your fingers. Rash Belknap can play a cornet splendid, but he don't play very often. Frank Hervey plays one that goes over his shoulder way behind his back. Gosh, I wish I could get a cornet. May 10th. Father has found out about my killing that hen. He didn't get mad but said I ought to have cut her head off and she would be good to eat. But I suppose it is too late now, for it is almost a week ago and I buried her the next day. May 11th. Me and Potter Gorham went mayflowering today. I got a bunch and sold them to a student named Chisholm for 35 cents. I put it with my cornet money. I have now got $1.22. I can get a cornet for $25 a second-hand one. I am afraid I shall never get that cornet. May 12th. Rainy last night and this morning. In the afternoon it cleared up. Gosh, I wish you could see the licking Beanie got tonight. Me and Beanie went out to go up to see Shute and make some sweet fern cigars. Beanie came over for me and went up to Pute's. On the way Beanie went up and rung his doorbell and we hid behind the fence and Mr. Watson, Beanie's father, came out holding a light and shading it with his hand. The wind blew the light out and in going in again he hit his head an awful bump against the door. Me and Beanie nearly died laughing, only we tried not to laugh too loud. Well, we went up to Pute's and Pute had been sent to bed for something, and so we started back and met a man who said, "Is this you, Elbridge?" It was pretty dark and Beanie said yes, and Mr. Watson grabbed us both by the collar and said, "So you are the boys who rung my doorbell," and then he give Beanie a rap on the side of the head and began to shake him round lively, and while he was shaking Beanie up I put for home. I hid behind the fence, and I could hear him say, "I will learn you to associate with that miserable Shute boy and waste your time ringing doorbells," and Beanie was saying, "Oh father, I will never do it again." I nearly died laughing to hear Beanie a rattling round on the sidewalk. I hope Mr. Watson won't tell father. I guess he won't, for he gets over his mad pretty quick. Every time I think of Beanie's legs flying round in the air I giggle right out, and when I think of Mr. Watson bumping his head I nearly die. Sometimes I think it pays to be tough. May 13th, 186 Keen and Seal have got some new croquet slippers. You bet they feel pretty big about it. May 14th. Nothing particular today. May 15th. Went in swimming today. The water was pretty cold, but I swum across the river twice. May 16th. The suckers have come. Potter Gorham caught 3 yesterday. Me and Potter was going yesterday after school, but father wouldn't let me because I didn't split my kindlings. May 17th. The band played tonight. Father made me go to bed at 9, but I could hear it because my window is just across the road. They are playing a new piece. It is the Wood-Up Quickstep. They say Ned Kendall could play it on a bugle better than anybody. Old Robinson could, and Mr. Ashman can play it splendid. It goes. It is the best piece they play except Departed Days. That always makes me feel like crying, it is kinder sad like. I hope I can get my cornet some day. May 19th. Had a awful toothache today and had to go down to Dr. Pittman, and he pulled it out. I tell you it hurt. Dr. Pittman said the roots must have reached way to the back of my neck. Beanie went with me and then told all round that I hollered. You just wait, Beanie. May 21st. Early this afternoon me and Fatty Melcher got some real cigars at Henry Simpson's store, and went down behind Old Man Chichel's store and smoked them. We were both awful sick and laid there all the afternoon. When I went home I walked wobbly, and Mother asked me if I was sick, and she put me to bed and was going to send for the doctor. But Father came in, and when he found out what ailed me he laughed and said it served me right. Then after supper he sat out on the steps right under my window and smoked a old pipe, and I could smell it, and I thought I should die. Then Mother asked him to go away, and he laughed and said all right, but he just I had enough for one day, and she said she just so, and I just so too. He said if it hadn't made me sick he would have licked me. I don't see why it is so. Father swears sometimes when he hits his thumb with a hammer, and once when he was in the dark he was walking towards the door with his arms out to feel for the door. One arm went on one side of the door, and the other arm on the other side, and he hit his nose a fearful bump right on the edge of the door, and I wish you could have heard him swear. Well, if I swear he licks me. And he smokes, and if I do he says he will lick me, and he don't go to church, and if I don't go he says he will lick me. Oh dear, I guess I won't smoke any more. May 22nd. Went in swimming today twice, once down to the raceway and once up to the gravel. May 23rd. Went butterflying with Chick Chickering today. It is a little early for them, but we got 2 blue and black ones and 3 little red ones. Me and Chick are making aquariums. Chick has got a splendid glass one. I made mine out of a butter firkin. I sawed it off halfway and then washed it out with soft soap and rinsed it 2 or 3 times, and then I put in some white sand and stones, and I have got some little minnies and kivis and a little pickerel. It looks splendid, and I change the water every 3 days. May 24th. Nothing particular today. May 25th. I can swim under water from the big tree on Moulton's side of the river at the gravel to the tree on the bank on Gilman's side. I went in 3 times today. May 26th. My rooster is sick. He has eaten something. He sits all humped up. I went in swimming 2 times today. May 27th. My rooster is pretty sick. I tried to give him some cayenne pepper tonight. Father said cayenne pepper was good for sick hens, so I held his mouth open and give him a spoonful. When I let him go, he kept his mouth open and sorter sneezed pip-craw, 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 and then he went to the water dish and began to drink. I think he is better because he hadn't drank any water for 2 days before. He was still drinking when I went away. I guess he will be a lot better tomorrow. May 28th. What do you think? This morning when I went out to feed my hens I found my rooster dead. He had drank up all the water, and he was all puffed up. I felt pretty bad. Father says I gave him enough cayenne pepper for a horse. He ought to have told me. He was a pretty good rooster too. I am having pretty tough luck. May 29th. I read over my diary today. I have forgot to tell whether it was bright and fair or rainy, I can't say now. May 30th, 186. Nothing particular today. Bright and fair. May 31st. Bright and fair. Went up to Whacker Chadwick's today after school to help him plant his garden. We had about a bushel of potatoes to plant, and it was fun to sit round a basket and cut up the potatoes. After a while Jim Early and Luke Mannix came along and we began to plug potatoes at them. They plugged them back and we had a splendid fight, me and Whack and Posy and Boog Chadwick on one side and Jim Early and Luke Mannix and Bob Ridley on the other. Luke Mannix hit me twice right in the back of the head. I am going up tomorrow to help them some more. Went in swimming once today. May 32. No, I mean June 1st. I went up to Chadwick's after school. Captain Chadwick was there, and they wasn't any plug-in potatoes. Went in swimming. June 2nd. Rainy. Beanie is mad with me. I don't care. June 3rd. Went to church today. June 4th. Cloudy but no rain. Went up to Chadwick's today and sawed wood. Boog and Posy fit while me and Wax sawed wood, then we went in swimming down to Sandy Bottom. Somebody tied some hard knots in my shirt. I forgot to split my kindlings tonight. June 5th. Bright and fair. Beanie is still mad. June 6th. Bright and fair. I know what Beanie is mad about. He thinks I told about his getting a licking. I didn't tell. He can stay mad if he wants to. June 7th. Father has bought a horse of Dan Ranlat. I rode up to Brentwood with Sam Dyer to get it. It is the prettiest horse I ever saw. I rode it down from Brentwood, and it goes just as easy as sitting on a springboard. When I got home, Beanie got over his mad and came over, and I gave him a ride. Me and Beanie never were mad so long before. June 9th. Rainy. This afternoon me and Beanie and Father went to ride with the new horse. Her name is Nellie. June 10th. Bright and fair. We keep Nellie down to Joe Haynes' stable. Frank Haynes is learning me how to clean her off. She nipped my arm today and made a black and blue spot. Went in swimming today. I have to get up every morning and harness Nellie and drive Father to the depot. I like it because I always race with the men coming down Front Street. There is George Durgin and Fred Sullivan and Jim Wingate, and I can beat them all. I don't tell Father that I race. I rode Nellie this afternoon with Frank Haynes and Ed Toll. I didn't go in swimming today. June 11th. Bright and fair. Nellie kicked me today. I guess I scratched her today too hard with the currycomb. It didn't hurt me much. I went in swimming twice. June 12th. Bright and fair. Me and Chick Chickering went bullfrogging today. We got 3 dozen hind legs and sold them to Mr. Hervey for 30 cents, and took our pay in ice cream. June 13th. Rode Nellie this noon. I have to go to the 5:30 train every night for Father. I like to drive, but I don't like to go every night. June 14th. Rash Belknap and Horace Cobbs go in swimming every morning at 6 o'clock. I got a licking today that beat the one Beanie got. Last summer me and Tomtit Thompson and Caw-Caw Harding and Whack and Paws and Boog Chadwick went in swimming in May and all through the summer until October. One day I went in 10 times. Well, I didn't say anything about it to Father so as not to scare him. Well, today he did go to Boston, and he said I am going to teach you to swim. When I was as old as you I could swim, said he, and you must learn. I said I have been wanting to learn to swim, for all the other boys can swim. So we went down to the gravel and I peeled off my clothes and got ready. Now, said he, you just wade in up to your waist and squat down and duck your head under. I said the water will get in my nose. He said no, it won't, just squat right down. I could see him laughing when he thought I would snort and sputter. So I waded out a little ways and then dived in and swam under water most across, and when I came up I looked to see if Father was surprised. Gosh, you ought to have seen him. He had pulled off his coat and vest, and there he stood up to his waist in the water with his eyes just bugging right out as big as hen's eggs, and he was just a-going to dive for my dead body. Then I turned over on my back and waved my hand at him. He didn't say anything for a minute, only he drawed in a long breath. Then he began to look foolish, and then mad, and then he turned and started to slosh back to the bank where he slipped and went in all over. When he got to the bank he was pretty mad and yelled for me to come out. When I came out he cut a stick and whaled me, and as soon as I got home he sent me to bed for lying, but I guess he was mad because I about scarred the life out of him. But that night I heard him telling Mother about it, and he said that he'd dive 3 times for me in about 30 feet of water. But he bragged about my swimming and said I could swim like a striped frog. I shall never forget how his boots went kerslosh 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 when we were skinning home through crosslots. I shall never forget how that old stick hurt either. Anyhow, he didn't say anything about not going in again, so I guess I am all right. June 15th, 186. Johnny Heald, a student, came to me and wanted me to carry some tickets to a dance round to the girls in the town. There was about 100 of them. He read the names over to me and I said I knew them all. So after school me and Beanie started out and walked all over town and give out the tickets. I had a long string of names and every time I would leave one I would mark out the name. I didn't give the head girls any because they told Father about some things that me and Beanie and Pute did, and the farmer girls and the silly girls lived way up on the plains and I didn't want to walk up there. So when I went over to Hemlock's side to give one, I went over to the factory boarding house and give some to them. They was awful glad to get them too and said they would go to the dance. Some people was not at home, and so I gave their tickets to the next house. It took me till 8 o'clock and I got $1 for it. I don't believe those girls that didn't get their tickets will care much about going anyway. I guess the head girls won't want to tell on me another time. June 16th. Dennis Coakley and Tomtit Thompson had a fight behind Hervey's restaurant today. Hervey stopped them just as they were having a good one. That's just the way. I don't see why they always want to stop a fight. All fellers fight for is to see which can lick, and how can they tell unless they fight it out? June 17th. Bright and fair. There is going to be a big cattle show here this fall. They are going to have it in a field up by the depot. They are going to have horse trots and shows and everything. We are going to have no school. It don't come for an awful while yet. Charles Taylor is going to have Nellie to ride. June 18th. Me and Mickey Gould had a race horseback. He had one of Ben Merrill's little black horses. We raced way round Kensington Ring. I could beat trotting and he could beat running. When I got home Nellie was so sweaty that Father told me not to ride her for a week. June 19th. Went up to Chadwick's after school. Boog and Whack got Willie fighting with Johnny Rogers. Willie licked him. Willie is Whack's little brother. He is a awful cunning little feller. He can fight too. All the Chadwicks can fight. June 20th. Bright and fair. I am going fishing tonight with Potter Gorham. June 21st. Bright and fair. Went fishing today with Potter Gorham. I caught 5 perch and 4 pickerel. I cleaned them and we had them for supper. Father said they was the best fish he ever eat. I also caught the biggest roach I ever saw, almost as big as a sucker, and I can't tell what I did with him. I thought Potter had hooked him for fun, but he said he didn't, and we hunted everywhere for him. I don't know where I put that roach. June 22nd. The students had their dance last night. They had awful time. Some of the girls which didn't get no tickets was mad, and the students which wanted them to go was mad, and they went to Johnny Heald and give him time. Then he went round and told them how it was and give them tickets. Well, the night of the dance everything was all right until lots of people came which hadn't been on the list, but which we had given tickets. Well, the students didn't want to let them in and they were mad, and Chick Randall hit a student named Pendry right in the nose and knocked his glasses off, and Nichols knocked Johnny Lordway across the entry, and they was going to have a big fight when Bob Carter and 2 or 3 men stopped it. Today Johnny Heald came down to the house and said I had got things all mixed up and Father made me give back the $1. But he told Johnny Heald he hadn't ought to have let me try such a hard job. Gosh, I am glad Father thinks it was a mistake, and don't know that I did it on purpose. June 23rd. There is a dead rat in the wall in my room. It smells awful. June 24th. Rainy. Most time for vacation. The smell in my room is fearful. June 25th. More trouble today. It seems as if there wasn't any use in living. Nothing but trouble all the time. Mother said I couldn't sleep in that room until the rat was taken out. Well, Father he came into my room and sniffed once and said, "Phew, what a almighty smell." Then he held his nose and went out and came back with Mr. Staples, the father of the feller that called me Polegs. Well, he came in and put his nose up to the wall and sniffed round until he came to where my old clothes hung. Then he said, "Thunder George, this is the place, right behind this jacket, it is the worst smell I ever smelt." Then he threw my clothes in a corner and took out his tools and began to dig a hole in the wall, while Father and Mother and Aunt Sarah stood looking at him and holding their nose. After he dug the hole he reached in but didn't find anything, then he stuck in his nose and said, "It don't smell any in there." Then they all let go of their nose and took a sniff and said, "Murder, it is worse than ever, it must be right in the room somewhere." Then Father said to me, "Look in those clothes and see if there is anything there." So I looked and found in the pocket of my old jacket that big roach that I lost when I went fishing with Potter Gorham. It was all squashy and smelt awful. Father was mad and made me throw the jacket out of the window, and won't let me go fishing for a week. Anyway, I know now what became of my roach. June 26th. Keene and Seal are going to sing in the Eunuch Aerial Choir. Father says he will give them some bronze boots. Mother got them some new nets for their hair today. Girls has lots more done for them than fellers. June 27th, 186 bright and fair. School closed today. We don't have any more school till September. Snap crackers have come. 8 cents a bunch at old Langley's store. Lane and Rollins sell them for 10 cents. Torpedoes 8 cents a bunch. Pinwheels 1 cent each. Pute is going to have a cannon. Father won't let me have a cannon. He says I don't know any more than to look into it and blow my head off. June 28th. Cloudy but no rain. 4th of July pretty soon. Father says when he was a boy all they had for fireworks was balls of wool soaked in turpentine which they lit and fired round. I am glad I did not live then. June 30th. Cloudy but no rain. Went in swimming 3 times today. I am going bullfrogging Monday. June 31st. No, July 1st. Went to church today. July 2nd. I went bullfrogging today. Thunderstorm today. I have got 10 bunches of snap crackers and some slow match. I spent $1 of my cornet money. I guess I shall never get that cornet. I hope it won't rain the 4th. July 3rd. Night before 4th. Pute and Beanie can stay out all night. Father took my snap crackers into his room and said if I get up before 5 I can have any. July 4th. I am too tired to write anything. I never had so much fun in my life. I only got burned 5 times. 1 snap cracker went off right in my face, and I couldn't see anything till Mother washed my eyes out. C. Smith fired a torpedo and a piece of it flew right in the corner of my eye and made a blue spot there. I fired every one of my snap crackers. It took me all day. July 5th. Bright and fair. I didn't wake up today till 10 o'clock. I was pretty sore and my eyes felt as if they was sawdust in them. July 6th. Bright and fair. Father stayed home today. I wanted him to go fishing but he wouldn't. July 7th. Father told me I could go fishing and stay all day. I don't know what had come over him because most always he raises time when I go fishing and don't come home early. So I went and caught 3 pickerels and 4 perch and 2 hogbacks and went in swimming 2 times. Well, as I was a-coming home 2 or 3 people met me and said they was company at my house, so when I got home I skinned in the back way so as not to see the company till I got on my best breeches. But I met Father in the door, and he told me to go right up to Mother's room and see the company. So I skinned up to her room holding my hand behind me because I had tore my breeches awful getting over a fence, and I didn't want the company to see. Well, what do you think the company was? It was the homeliest baby you ever see. It looked just like a monkey and made fearful faces and kinder squeaked like. Mother was sick and there was a old fat woman who told me to go out. But Mother said she wanted to see me and she kissed me and asked me to kiss the baby. I didn't want to but I did it because Mother was sick. Mother asked me how many fish I caught, and what kind, and I told her, and said she should have some for her supper, but she said she wouldn't have any just then. Then I went downstairs and Father did I like the baby and I said it was homely, and he said it was 10 times as good looking as I was and he said he was glad that when the baby growed up it wouldn't have Beanie and Pute to play with and wouldn't be tough like me, and then Aunt Sarah said she just me and Beanie and Pute wasn't any tougher than Father and Jim Melcher were when they was boys. And then Father laughed and told me to go to bed and I went. That was a awful homely baby anyway. July 8th. Nothing particular today. You bet that baby can howl. Went to church. July 9th. Bright and fair. Most every morning we go up in Mother's room to see the old fat woman wash the baby and hear it howl. It turns black in the face. I bet it will be a fighter. July 10th. I have got a new nickname. It is Yallerlegs. That is because Father bought me a pair of kinder yellow breeches, and made me wear them. I bet he wouldn't like to be called Yallerlegs. July 11th. Bright and fair. Went in swimming today to a new place. We call it the Stump. It is up by the eddy. July 12th. A thunderstorm. In the afternoon went fishing but didn't get a bite. Pute's father says fish won't bite after a thunderstorm. July 13th. A awful hot day. Tonight I went up to the depot to see Major Blake and Charles Toll fight over passengers to the beach. July 14th. I am going to the beach to stop with Beanie in his father's tent. It is called Hotel de Pig. July 15th. I guess I will go tomorrow. July 16th. Me and Beanie went to the beach and stopped all day and all night. We had a bully time. July 17th. Another hot day. Went in swimming 4 times. My back is all burned. July 18th. Me and Beanie got in the newsletter today. The paper said the Siamese twins was at the beach stopping at Watson's tent. Pute was mad because we got in the paper, and he didn't, and told all round that it didn't mean me and Beanie but Rash Belknap and Horace Cobbs. July 19th. Hot as time. Nothing particular today. July 20th. Hot as time. Nothing particular today. July 21st. Awful hot. Big thunder shower and lightning struck a tree in front of Perry Moulton's house. July 22nd. Went to church. Beanie let the wind out of the organ, and it squeaked and made everybody laugh. Keene and Seal sing in the choir. Father feels pretty big about it. July 23rd. I got stung by hornets today. I went in swimming at the eddy, and when I was drying my clothes I sat right down on a stump where there was a nest of yellow-bellied hornets. They all lit on me and I thought I was afire for a minute. I ran and dived right off the bank and swam way out under water. When I came up they were buzzing round just where I went down. When I came out the fellers put mud on my bites and after a while they stopped hurting. I tell you the fellers just died laughing to see me run and holler. July 24th. Bright and fair. I was all swelled up with hornet bites but they didn't hurt any. I looked just like Beanie when he had the mumps. Everyone laughed at me. July 25th. I got a fishhook in my leg today. Me and Fatty Melcher was a-fishing when we got our lines tangled. I hollered first cut, but I didn't have any knife and Fatty wouldn't let me have his knife. So we got jerking our lines kinder mad like and all of a sudden the hook got into my leg. Gosh, you bet it hurt. Me and Fatty got the hook out but it bled some. The worst of it was there was a worm on the hook, and when we got the hook out they wasn't any worm there. Fatty says people sometimes dies from having worms in them. I bet this one has crawled way in. It may grow inside of me. Something is always happening to me. When I got home I went down to Dr. Derborn's store and bought some worm medicine and swallowed some. It was awful bitter. It cost 20 cents out of my cornet money. July 26th. Bright and fair. I was all right today except my leg was stiff. Mother asked what made me lame, and she put on a piece of pork. I told her about the worm and she said the pork would draw him out if he was there, but he didn't go in. When I told her about the worm medicine she just sat down and laughed. So I needn't worry about having worms. I went down to Dr. Derborn's and tried to get him to take the medicine back, but he said he wouldn't. I think he is pretty mean not to. July 27th. I couldn't go in swimming today on account of my leg. All the fellers went in and I had to sit on the bank and see them. July 28th. Couldn't go in swimming today either. My leg is nearly well. Mother took off the pork today. It was all white where the pork was. I can go in swimming Monday. I went down to the library tonight. It is the first time I have been down since Joe Parsons chased me out. I guess he has forgotten it. I got out Bush Boys to read. It is a splendid book about shooting lions and zebras and giraffes and everything. July 29th. I tried to have Father let me stay away from church today because my leg was sore, but he said all right, you can stay, but I guess that leg will be too sore to let you go in swimming this week. So I went to church and didn't limp any. This afternoon I sat under the apple tree and read Bush Boys. Father and Mother went to ride with Nellie. It is the first time Mother has been out. Aunt Sarah took care of the baby. They will name it Edward Ashman Shute. I guess it is named Ashman after the leader of the band. I am going to tell him tomorrow and see if he won't sell me a cornet on trust. Bright and fair. July 30th. Bright and fair. I told Father I was going down to see Mr. Ashman, and he said if you ever do I will lick you. The baby's name is Edward Ashton Shute and not Ashman. I wouldn't name him for any cornet player. It is pretty tough luck. If I could have got that cornet I wouldn't have minded a licking. Went in swimming today. July 31st. Frankie had the croup last night. I waked up and heard him cough awful funny and kinder as if his throat was tight. I called Mother, and she came in and hollered for Aunt Sarah and Father, and they rushed round lively, and gave him egg and sugar and put hot cloths on his throat till he howled, and after he could howl he was all well. Aunt Sarah took him in with her the rest of the night. Father said I was a brick to wake up and call them. I don't know when he has called me a brick before. Went in swimming 3 times today. August 1st. Bright and fair. Annie tumbled down the front steps from the top to the bottom. She howled and Mother thought she was about killed, but she was so fat that she didn't hurt her. August 2nd. Father came home early today and took Mother and Aunt Sarah and Keen and Georgie to ride. Me and Seal stayed to look after the house. Seal went upstairs to look after the baby, and when she was gone I got Annie and Frankie fighting. It was the funniest fight I ever saw. They just pushed each other round and tried to claw each other. While they was fighting, Seal came downstairs and pulled them apart, and boxed their ears and made them go in different rooms. She jawed me and said she would tell Father. When Father came home she told on me and Father sent me to bed at 6 o'clock. You just wait, Seal, and you will find out. August 3rd, 186 Bright and fair. The fellers played a pretty mean trick on me tonight. They played it on Nibby Hardwell last night. Nibby is visiting his aunt and comes from the city and is pretty green like most folks from the city. You see, if I hadn't got sent to bed because Seal told on me I would have been there and seen them play it on Nibby. Well, last night all the fellers was out. Whack and Boog and Posy and Pute and Beanie and Nipper and Caw-Caw and Pile and Chick and Mickey and Priscilla and Fatty. Nibby, he was there too. They wanted to play lead the old blind horse to water, and I was to be the blind horse. They said they had some fun playing it the night before. That was when they played it on Nibby, but I didn't know that. Well, you blindfold a feller and give him a rope and a switch, and the other fellers get on the other end of the rope, and the feller nearest you has a bell and rings it, and you pull, and if you can pull him up to you, you can pace time out of him with your switch. Only if you pull off your blindfold, all the fellers can pace time out of you. Well, they blindfold me and hollered ready, and I began to yank and pull, and the feller rung his bell, and he came pretty hard at first, but I kept yanking, and bimeby he come so quick that I nearly fell over backwards, and I felt him and grabbed him and began to pace time out of him, when he grabbed away my switch and began to pace me, and that wasn't fair, and I pulled off my blindfold, and who do you suppose it was? Well, it was William Perry Moulton, and he was mad. They had tied me to his doorbell, and I had yanked out almost 10 feet of wire. When I saw who it was, gosh, I began to holler, and he stopped licking me. I guess he never licked anyone before because he didn't know just how to lay it on. Well, when he found out how it was, he let me go, but he said he should have to do something about the boys disturbing him so. It was a pretty mean trick to play on a feller. We are going to try and play it on Pop Clark tomorrow night. August 4th. Bright and fair. Me and Hiram Mingo had a race today to see which could swim the furthest under water. I beat him easy. He can lick me, but I can beat him swimming. August 5th. Nothing particular today. Only church. August 6th. The baby was sick today, had the doctor. August 7th. The baby was sicker. I didn't go in swimming. August 8th. The baby is better today. I went in swimming 5 times. August 9th. Rained all day. The baby is all right. I went bullfrogging with Chick Chickering. August 10th. Nellie is sick. Joe Haynes cut a hole in her and put in an onion and some braided hair, and then Father took her out to pasture. I can't ride her for a month. August 11th. Bright and fair. Mr. Watson, Beanie's father, got throwed off of his horse today and wrenched his wrist. The horse couldn't have throwed him, but the girth broke. Mr. Watson can ride splendid. August 12th. Bright and fair. No more church this month. Bully. August 13th. Bright and fair. I went down to Ed Toll's, and me and Ed rode on the hack with Joe Palmer. August 14th. Ed Toll and Frank Haynes are mad. Frank hollered over to Ed. Ed Toll fell in a hole and couldn't get out to save his soul, and Ed hollered back, Frank Haynes ain't got no brains. And then they was mad. August 15th. William Perry Moulton has got some ripe apples in his backyard. Me and Pute helped him catch some hens today, and he said we could have some apples if there was any on the ground. There was only 2 wormy ones, but before we left 5 or 6 fell off. I guess it was because Pute pushed me against the tree. There was pretty good apples too. August 16th. Rainy. I went fishing with Potter Gorham. Caught 3 roach and 5 hornpout. We eat them for supper. Father said I can clean fish most as well as he can. He says he will come home some day early and go a-fishing. August 17th. John Gardner has hung up a Grant and Colfax flag. There will be some fun this fall. August 18th. Bright and fair. Today I went fishing with Fatty Melcher. We caught some eels and some hornpout. Eels and hornpout can live a long time out of water, and so when I got home I put 5 that were alive in the rainwater barrel. August 19th. Bright and fair. It is fun to sit round all day Sunday and not have to go to church. August 20th. Bright and fair. I had to spend the whole morning in going to the river for water for washing. It was wash day, and when Mother went to the rainwater barrel there was 5 dead hornpout flying on the top. She made me tip the barrel over and get water from the river. There was some fun, for Beanie helped me, and he stood in the hand cart and filled the tubs, and all of a sudden I let go, and the old cart flew up, and Beanie and the tub and the pail and everything went right in. Beanie isn't going to speak to me ever again. August 21st, 186. Gosh, we are having fun now. What do you think? There is going to be a big mass meeting this fall. Ben Butler and Jake Ely and lots of old pelters are going to be here, and they is going to be 4 or 5 bands and lots of fun. Well, before that comes, they is going to be lots of political meetings, and the first one is to be next week, and Father is going to make a speech. Jim Luverin and Bill Morrill and General Marston and Tom Levitt, and he is a ripper to holler. And they want Father to make a speech. Father says he must work for the party and perhaps he can get his salary raised. So he has been a-writing every night, and mumbling it over to hisself, and last night he said he had got it. Tonight he is a-going to speak it to us. August 22nd. Last night Father stewed his speech over and let us stay up to hear it. He stood up and looked awful stern and put one hand in the bosom of his shirt. I couldn't help laughin', but he told me to shet up or I could go to bed, and so I shet up. I tell you it was fine. It begun Mr. Moderator had I supposed, or for one moment dreamt that I, a humble office holder under this glorious government, would have been called upon to speak, I should have remained at home with my wife and my children. I said, if you don't want to make a speech, why don't you stay at home that night? And he said, one more word from you, sir, and you go to bed. So I didn't yip again. Then he went on like this: were it not that a cruel accident in my early youth, in my far-away boyhood days, prevented me from volunteering and desecrating my life to my country's welfare, and the struggle just ended, I would have poured out every drop of my blood to have maintained her owner, and the owner of her flag. Mother began to laugh and said, George, how can you tell such fearful stories? You know you were scarred most to death because you was afraid you would be drafted. Father said they was a lot of old fellows traveling round the country, and talking that way, who couldn't have been drug into the war with a ox chain. Then he stood on the other leg a while and said, it is peculiarly appropriate that Exeter, the birthplace of Lewis Cass, the educator of Webster, the home of Amos Tuck, of General Marston, should be foremost in the party strife, and as for me, I work only for my party's good, my country's good, without fear or hope of reward. There was a lot more to it, and some of it you could hear about a mile, he hollered so. August 23rd. We are all going the night of the rally. Mother says she won't go, for she would be ashamed to hear Father tell such dreadful stories. Aunt Sarah don't want to go because she is afraid Father will break down. But she has got to go with me and Keen and Seal and Georgie. August 24th. Father practiced his speech tonight, and we all hollered and clapped at the fine parts. He has got a new pair of boots. They hurt like time, and he only wears them nights when he is practicing his speech. August 25th. Father licked me tonight because I spoke some of his speech to Beanie. He was awful mad and said I was the biggest fool he ever see. The fellers have got up a Grant Club. Priscilla can't belong because he is a Democrat. August 26th. Father called me and Beanie out behind the barn tonight, and gave us 10 cents 8 pace if we wouldn't say anything about his speech. After supper Father practiced again, but he didn't holler so loud because he was afraid somebody would hear him, and Mother didn't want him to wake up the baby, and it was Sunday too. August 27th. It has been bright and fair all the week and hot as time. I have to go to the river for soft water because it hasn't rained any since I had to tip over the rain water barrel. I have got a little turtle as big as a cent. Father went down to General Marston's office tonight to arrange about the rally. He came home and practiced about an hour. I guess he would have practiced all night if the baby hadn't waked up and hollered. August 28th. We are all getting ready for the rally. Keen and Seal and Georgie have got some new plaid dresses. Father has got a pair of gray breeches and a black coat. Mother said the rally was a good thing because it was the first time she had seen Father dressed up since he was married. August 29th. There was a big thunder shower last night. We all got up in the night and went into Mother's room. Mother sat on the feather bed, and all them that was scart could set there. I wasn't scart. Father said it would be just the cussed luck to have it rain the night of the rally. August 30th. We had the last practice tonight. Father put on his best clothes and new boots, and the girls had on their plaid dresses, and I had on a new paper collar. We all sat down, and Father came in and stood up. I tell you he looked fine. Well, he begun, Mr. Moderator had I supposed or for one moment dreamt, and then he forgot the rest. I tell you he was mad. I wanted to laugh but didn't dast to. Well, after a while he remembered and went through it all right, and then he went over it 2 times more. Gosh, what if he should forget it tomorrow night? He is going to write some of it on his cuffs, and he practiced tonight making gestures so as to bring his cuffs up so that he could read it. August 31st. The rally is tonight. Father woke us all up last night hollering in his sleep. He dreamt about the speech. This morning he went to Boston without eating his breakfast. I guess he is beginning to be scarred. I am a-going to make his boots shine today. Gosh, what if he should break down? I guess I am getting a little scarred too. Bright and fair. September 1st. Last night Father came home and the first thing he did was to send me down to Miss Pratt's for his shirt. It was all polished and shone like glass. Then he asked if I had blacked his boots, and then he eat his supper. He didn't eat much though. He said Mr. Tuck came down from Boston with him. Mr. Tuck was a-going to make a speech first, and then he was going to introduce Jim Lovren as chairman, and then Jim Lovren was a-going to call on Father. Father said he bet $5 he would call him Jim instead of Mr. Moderator. Father was pretty cross at supper. I guess he was getting scarred. The baby began to cry and Father asked Mother why she didn't choke the squalling brat, and Mother sorta laughed and put the baby into Father's lap, and said I guess you had better choke him. Father laughed and began to toss the baby up and down. He likes the baby, and while he was playing with it he was all right. But after supper he was cross and said he had an awful headache. Then he went practicing his speech again so as not to call the moderator Jim. Well, we got ready and went down early to get some good seats so as to hear Father, and see him come in with them that was to set on the platform. We wanted to go down with Father, but he said he couldn't bother with us. But before we went he came downstairs with his new clothes on, and he looked fine but his face looked awful white. He said he had a headache, but as soon as he got started to speak it would all go off. So we went down. Seal had her hair curled and Keen had a new red silk ribbon on her hair because her hair won't curl, and Aunt Sarah had on a new dolman with beads on it, and some long coral earrings, and they all looked fine. Aunt Sarah took Georgie by the hand because she was the littlest, and me and Keen and Seal followed on. When we got there the band was playing in front of the town hall, and Aunt Sarah said I could stay out and hear it, and then said I could sit with Jim Wingate and Willie Sweat if I would behave. I said I would, and we listened, and after the band went in we went too. Most all the seats were taken, and we got some bully seats way up in front. I looked for Father but couldn't see him because the speakers hadn't come in. Well, just as soon as we got in the policeman was up in front, and he said they has been too much whistling and stamping, and the next one that whistles or stamps will get put out. Well, they was old Swain and Brown and Keyes and Durgin, and everybody kept quiet. After a few minutes the band began to play Hail to the Chief, and the speakers came marching up the middle aisle. I looked for Father but he wasn't there. Everybody began to clap and stamp, and Jim and Willie asked me where my old man was. I stood up to see if he was there, and just then I saw the policeman a-rushing at me. He grabbed me by the collar and shook me round till I didn't know which end my head was on, and he dragged me down the aisle and threw me out. As we were going down the aisle I saw Aunt Sarah running down the other aisle as fast as she could go with her bonnet on the back of her head, and Keen and Seal and Georgie following along all bawling. She got out in the entry just as he was going to put me out of the front door, and she grabbed me away from him and said, "You miserable cowardly wretch to treat a boy that way." He said I whistled, and she said he didn't, and you knew it, only you didn't dast take anyone else. Then she told us to come home, and we went home as fast as we could, all bawling. When we got home Mother was sitting up alone, and Aunt Sarah started to tell her, and Keen and Seal and Georgie all bawled, and you never heard such a noise, and Father was in bed with a headache and hollered out, "What in time is the matter?" And she told him, and I heard him jump out of bed, and in a minute he came out buttoning up his suspenders. Mother said, "Where in the world are you going, George?" And he said things is come to a pretty pass if a boy can't go and hear his father make a speech without being banged round by a policeman. "I am going down to knock the heads off every policeman there." And he reached for his vest. Mother said, "George, don't you go near the hall." And Father said he could lick any 2 men on the police force easy, and he would show them how to slam people round, and he reached for his coat. And Keen and Seal and Georgia began to bawl again to think he would get hurt, and Aunt Sarah and Mother said, "You had better not go, George. And father said he would give them more fun in 5 minutes than they had seen in a political rally in 5 years, and he reached for his boots, and mother said, "What will they think of you after you have sent word that you are too sick to make a speech, to see you come rushing into the hall and go punching the policeman?" And father had got on one boot, and when she said that he began to look kinder sick and said, "Thunder, that is so." And then his headache got worse, and he gave me a 25-cent scrip and keen and seal and Georgie 10 cents each, and he went to bed, and so did we. I wonder if his head ached really so he couldn't make a speech, or if he was scart. I bet he was scart. School commences Monday. Father hasn't asked once about my diary, so I ain't going to write any more. 30 years or more after. On looking back over the pages of the diary, it appears to me that some sort of an honorable is due to those citizens now living, and the relatives and friends of those now dead, whose names have appeared in the diary, and who have, so to speak, been handled without gloves. That I have been neither mobbed, nor horsewhipped, nor sued, nor prosecuted, but that I have enjoyed many a good laugh with, and have received many pleasant words from, the victims, and their friends, is good evidence that they, and their more fortunate brothers who have not been therein mentioned, have taken the diary, in the very spirit in which it was published, that of affectionate and amusing retrospect. And it is indeed with affection that I recall those men, at that time in their prime. That I could not then understand the reason why they did not fully enter into and appreciate the spirit that prompted me and my boon companions to transgress so many rules, laws, and statutes is not surprising. Boys seldom can understand it. But although I now fully appreciate it, I often wonder at the spirit that prompted so many of those men in after years to show me so many kindnesses, so much encouragement, and such great forbearance. So many inquiries have been made of me about that cornet, the soul-filling ambition of my early years, that I feel that the uncertainty in regard to that delightful instrument ought to be cleared up. I never did save up enough money to buy a cornet. I haven't to this day. But many years afterwards, when my ambition had been turned into other and equally profitless channels, upon the death of a dear friend his beautiful cornet was sent me. I have it now, as the neighbors and the members of my family can testify fully and with deep feeling, if called upon. H.A.S. Dramatis Personae. A good many years ago, during my college days, it was my custom and that of my roommate, Brown of Exeter, to make our room the gathering place for Exeter boys, both studcats and homesick Exeter youths then filling positions in Boston. It happened that frequently undergraduates from other towns and cities came in at these Saturday evening gatherings, and it was a matter of wonder to them that we had so much to talk about in relation to our native town, and it was their frequent remark that either Exeter is a remarkable place, or you are a remarkably loyal set of fellows. That Exeter is a remarkable place is an axiom, and no better evidence of the fact can be found, were evidence necessary to sustain an axiom, than in the loyalty that every citizen displays, and the sincere love that prompts every one who has ever come under the spell of our dear old town to revisit her at every opportunity. Where else could a diary of this nature, dealing with actual persons and actual events, be published and be received with such absolute good nature and even enthusiasm by the persons now living who are mentioned therein? It is therefore with affection as well as amusement that I append the following brief biographical sketches of persons mentioned in the diary, preserving as nearly as possible the order of their appearance in the book. As many readers of the diary have expressed a desire to know more of the subsequent histories and achievements of those therein mentioned, it is hoped this information will satisfy a curiosity and interest which, to a loyal son of Exeter, appear quite natural. 1. Father. George S. Shute. A native of Exeter. For 26 years a clerk in the Boston Naval Office. Still living in Exeter, an old man with a young tongue, in fact, the quickest man at repartee in Exeter. 2. Mother. My mother died in the winter of 1896. No words can do justice to her qualities. A sweeter woman ne'er drew breath. 3. Jim Melcher. An old friend of my father's. Died in Maiden a few years ago. 4. Some of the men who were riding fast in the custom house were the following: George Davis, of Lexington, who a year ago celebrated his 50th consecutive year of service in the Naval Office, Colonel Ivory Pope, of Cambridge; Benjamin A. Sidwell, of East Boston; Jacob A. Howe, of Maiden; Frank Harriman, a brother of the late Governor Harriman of Concord; N. H. Hiram Barris, of Reading, Massachusetts. Deceased: C. C. Whitmore, of Portsmouth; N. H. Charles Mudge, of Maiden; Matthew F. Whittier, of Medford, a brother of the poet Whittier, and a newspaper writer of considerable prominence, writing under the pen name of Ethan Spike; and Tristram Talbot, of Newburyport, with others whom the writer does not now recall. A few years later, the writer spent several of his college vacations as deputy clerk in the same naval office, and made pleasant acquaintances with all of the above-named men. He found them very competent clerks, courteous gentlemen, and the best storytellers that he ever knew, and recollects those vacations as very pleasant periods in his school life. Some of them still hold positions in the Custom House. 5. Charles Taylor, a great friend of the family. Died in Exeter about 10 years ago. 6. Beanie E. L. Watson. In business at Williamstown, Massachusetts. Attained his boyhood ambition and married Lizzie Toll, Ed's sister. 7. Pewter C. E. Purington. My near neighbor, a decorative painter, who early displayed talent in this direction. 8. Skinny Bruce, W.M. J. Bruce. A tinsmith of Exeter who still thinks he could have licked Frank Elliot. 9. Frank Elliot. A successful mechanic in Boston, who is confident that he could have licked Skinny Bruce. 10. Nipper John A. Brown. Exeter. Chairman of the school board. Trustee of the seminary. Trustee of the library. My roommate at Harvard. 11. Mickey Gould. I do not know what became of Mickey. Wherever he is, there is a good-natured, jolly man. 12. Mr. Windsor. Address not known. How he could throw a snowball. 18. Ed Tall. Exeter, N. H. With a keen memory for old days. 14. Danny Wingate. A very prominent man. The father of J. D. P. and C. E. L. Wingate of the Boston Journal. Died at Exeter many years ago. 15. Whacker Colonel A. M. Chadwick. Lowell, Massachusetts. 16. Posey Austin K. Chadwick. Lowell, Massachusetts. Two of the best known and most respected citizens of Lowell. Dignified and sedate, but just touch on old Exeter days and watch their eyes twinkle and their tongues loosen. 17. Priscilla, Professor Charles A. Hobbs. Boston. Has written some dreadful mathematical works, and revisits Exeter often, but not often enough. 18. Phoebe Charles A. Taylor. Has inherited the very qualities that made his father so good a friend. 19. Lublin. Address not known. 20. Nigger Bell. So called because his hair was so very white. Professor of chemistry in a Western university. Died recently in Maiden. 21. Tommy Thompson, R. G. Thompson. New London, Connecticut. 22. Dutchy, Dr. William A. Siemens. New York City. Fullback on the Harvard 7711. There are several ex-principals of the Exeter High School who will remember Thompson and Siemens in very clear and vivid colors. 28. Chickering, Professor John J. Chickering. Flushing, L.I., Commissioner of Public Education of New York State. 24. Toady, Timothy Finton. Exeter. An expert woodworker with a leaning for politics. 25. Jim Wingate, James D. P. Wingate. Winchester, Massachusetts. The business manager of the Boston Journal. 26. Skippy H. C. Moses. Exeter. For many years in the wholesale wool business in Boston. One of the keenest sportsmen and best wing shots in New Hampshire. 27. Pyle, John G. Wood. Chicago. Manager of the McKay Cordage Factory in Chicago. Promises to return to Exeter when he has made his pile $100,000. From present indications, the prospect is favorable. 28. Billy Folsom, W.M. H. Folsom. Exeter. Member of the firm of E. Folsom and Company Brass Works. One of Harvard's greatest pitchers. 29. Hoppy, Gad. A very eccentric but sterling citizen, who could make cowhide boots which, like the panels in the one-horse shay, would last like iron for things like these. Died in Exeter a few years ago. 30. S.I. Smith. The man with the funny sign. Died in Exeter nearly 30 years ago. 31. Gran Miller and Ben Runlet. Address is not known. 32. Squire Lane. Died in Lynn. 33. Charles Burleigh. Died in Exeter. For many years treasurer of Phillips Exeter Academy, and superintendent of the Unitarian Sunday School. 34. Keene, my sister Mrs. C. E. Byington. Exeter. A very able and accomplished woman. The one to whom all members of the family go when in trouble. 35. Lucy Watson. Mrs. Frank Connor of Lynn. 36. Curly Connor, Mr. Frank Connor. Lynn. Husband of the aforesaid. 37. Joe Parsons, Mr. Joseph S. Parsons. Boston. An expert bookkeeper. 38. Billy Sweat, Mr. W.M. Sweat. Jamaica Plain. I remember him as one of the most polite and affable boys I ever met. 39. Mr. Lovell, who said "Oh hell, see, Lovell 2D." One of the best amateur actors and jolliest men I ever knew. Died recently. 40. John Flanagan. Exeter. A tinsmith and co-laborer with Skinny Bruce. 41. Gimme Fitzgerald. Died at Exeter 30 years ago. 42. Old Head, Orrin Head. Many students will affectionately remember him. Deceased. 43. Bob Carter. The old janitor of the town hall. Gruff, but very kind-hearted. Deceased. 44. What's Irving M. Watson. Father of Beamy, and pleasantly like him. 45. John Getchell. A liberal, free, and kind-hearted Exeter merchant. Deceased. 46. Eben Folsom. Uncle of Billy, and head of the firm of which Billy is a member. 47. Charlie, Dr. C. H. Garish. 48. Doc Pray, Dr. J. E. S. Pray. Gentlemen both, of whom the writer can say everything good. 49. Alice Cowett, who was a dairy maid. Miss Alice Jewell. Instructor of singing in the schools of Exeter. 50. Old Keyes Philander Keyes. A policeman of 30 years ago. Deceased. 51. Bill Hartnett, who used to make it lively for the last mentioned. A man of many good qualities notwithstanding. Deceased. 52. Old Swain. A contemporary of Old Keyes, and a co-laborer in the same vineyard. 53. Mr. Gordon, Hahn, Nathaniel Gordon. A retired lawyer of Exeter. 54. Dora Moses. 55. Mary Loverin, Mrs. Mary Lethbridge. Two beautiful girls and inseparable companions, whose deaths were untimely and irreparable. 56. Seal, my sister Celia E. Shute. Exeter. A stenographer, and a writer of short stories for magazines. 57. Caxcaw, Harding, Professor B. F. Harding. Boston. An early advocate of those methods of instruction that result in mens sana in corpore sano. 58. Dr. Dearborn. A most eccentric old apothecary. Died in Exeter a few years ago. 59. Aunt Sarah, Miss Sarah F. Shute. Exeter. The favorite and of a large family, all of whose geese are swans. 60. Fatty Melcher F. A. Melcher. Boston. So named because he was not fat. 61. Jenny Morrison, Mrs. John J. Joyce. Andover, Massachusetts. By not appearing at our grammar school reunion, Jenny disappointed 500 people. 62. J. Albert Clark. Exeter. One of the proprietors of the Exeter Machine Works. He has always had a very kindly interest in Beanie and Pluppy, in spite of the many annoyances he suffered at their boyish hands. 63. Bill Morrill, Mr. W.M. B. Morrill, for many years selectman of Exeter. Died in 1878. 64. Dave Quimby. Every student will recollect him. Died at Exeter recently. 65. Chitter James Robinson, a truckman in Boston. 66. Boog Chadwick, a New York broker, whose heart's in the Highlands, to wit Exeter. 67. Pop Clark Will Clark, Roxbury, Massachusetts, a born comedian and a delightfully entertaining man. 68. Shinny Thing, one of the few Exeter boys who continues his father's business at the old stand. If more did the same, the prosperity of country towns would be assured. 69. Jim Early, lives somewhere in the West. 70. Honey Donovan, William Donovan, Providence. 71. Mose Gordon, a Texas cattleman. 72. Mr. Lamed, Unitarian clergyman. Deceased. 73. Gil Steels, a merchant in Denver. 74. Ms. Packard, Mrs. Mary Packard, a famous local singer, now living in California. 75. Jim Lovering, James M. Lovering, a very shrewd politician. Deceased. 76. Old Mr. Stickney, Judge W. W. Stickney, with whom I studied law. Deceased, not, however, because of that fact. Judge Stickney was a sound lawyer and an upright, kind-hearted man. 77. Ed Dearborn, the old bell ringer. Deceased. 78. John Quincy and Pollard J. Q. A. Pollard, a very old man, upon whom the boys were wont to play tricks, but who had developed wonderful precision of aim with a knotted cane. Deceased. 79. Dan Ranlett, D. W. Ranlett, Boston Produce Exchange. 80. George M. Perkins, for many years an expressman between Boston and Exeter. 81. John E. Gibson, master of the Agassiz School, Boston. Residence, Jamaica Plain. I take the opportunity to notify him that the Exeter High School holds its quinquennial reunion June, 1903. 82. Isaac Shute, a retired merchant of Exeter. Deceased. 83. Major Blake, a famous Boniface, and for many years proprietor of the Squamscott. Deceased. 84. Charles D. Tall, an equally famous livery stable keeper, who periodically fought to a finish with Major Blake for passengers to Hampton Beach. Deceased. 85. Frank Haynes, a farmer. Residence, Exeter. 86. The baby, Edward A. Shute, Exeter, who can now handle his elder brother with ease. 87. Frankie, Frank F. Shute, who thinks he can do likewise but cannot, a hotel keeper at Lakewood, New Jersey. 88. Miss Annie P. Shute, who, by virtue of a clerkship in my office, owns the entire establishment. 89. Georgie, instructor in Latin and French in the Albany Academy, Albany, N.Y. 90. Nibby, a summer visitor named Hartwell. Deceased. 91. Hiram Mingo, a colored boy. Address not known. 92. Joe Palmer, a hackman with whom the boys used to ride. Address not known. 93. John E. Gardner, a member of an old family of merchants in Exeter. Deceased. Brother of Elizabeth Gardner Bouguereau, the artist. 94. General Marston, a famous New Hampshire lawyer and veteran of the Civil War. Deceased. 95. Amos Tuck, a famous lawyer, politician, financier, and member of Congress. Deceased. 96. Mr. Gravel. Address not known. 97. Elkins and Graves, famous auctioneers at that period. Deceased. 98. Scott Brigham, one of the boys then, one of the boys now. Exeter. 99. Charlie Woodbury. Deceased. 100. Potter, Gorham, Arthur Gorham. Killed by an accidental discharge of his gun nearly 30 years ago. A born naturalist. 101. Old Francis. For 33 years principal at the grammar school at Exeter. On his resignation, a few years ago, a reunion was held which was attended by old pupils from every state in the Union, to do him honor. Still hale and hearty, and living in Exeter. 102. Dr. Perry. An old family physician, who has ushered more children and children's children into the world than any man in the county, and who is beloved and revered by every one of them. Miss Jewett, in her Country Doctor, based her delightful description upon Dr. William G. Perry, her uncle, living in Exeter. 103. John Adams, who has trimmed enough carriages to set all New Hampshire a-wheel, and who still practices his trade in Exeter. 104. Neltall, M.B.S. George W. Hooper. Exeter. As rosy, good-natured, and musically inclined as she was in the good old days. 105. William Perry Moulton. A prosperous real estate and insurance man, who unfortunately for his peace of mind tried to raise Bartlett pears, Concord grapes, and Astrakhan apples in the neighborhood that was infested by Pluppy and his associates, who frequently tracked, chased, and caught them red-handed, but who was too kind-hearted even then to deprive them of their ill-gotten gains. 106. Chris Staples, who remembers the fight with Charlie Clark. 107. Charlie Clark. Deceased. Just before he died he read the diary, and sent word to the author that he remembered the scene in which he figured and much enjoyed the book. 108. Mr. Ashman, a veteran band leader of Boston. 109. Frank Hervey, a veteran restaurant keeper in Exeter. New living in Concord, N.H. 110. Rash Belknap, William H. Belknap, a retired banker and real estate man of Exeter. Town clerk of Exeter for 25 years. 111. Henry Simpson, periodical dealer in the late 60s. Living in Maine. 112. Luke Maniac, now living in Texas. As a boy he could curve a snowball round the corner, like T. B. Aldrich's Binnie Wallace. 113. Bob Ridley, George Eliot. Exeter. A right good fellow. 114. Sam Dyer, a rather eccentric blacksmith. Died in the West. 115. Horace Cobb, a good-natured, short, and extremely fat man. A native of Exeter, and last of a very prominent family. Died several years ago. 116. Dennis Coakley. Address not known. I have always felt badly to think the fight was throwed away, and neither of them licked. 117. Johnny Rogers, a cousin of the Chadwicks. Deceased. 118. Cap. John W. Chadwick, a retired sea captain. Father of Pa's Boog Wax and Willie Wax's little brother, a most cultivated gentleman, whose heart was kind, but whose word was law. Deceased. 119. Z. Smith, Frank Smith. Deceased in Lowell. 120. Miss Pratt, a laundress much patronized by students. She accumulated much property by practicing the gentle art of polishing shirts. 121. Old Durgeon Me. Ezra Durgeon, a rather quick-tempered but worthy policeman, contemporary with Old Swain and Old Kais. 122. Various stood cats, who have played their parts and gone. 123. Pluppy Skinny, Poe Legs the author. De minimis non curat lex.